11/2021 to order. We're having this as a Zoom and a YouTube meeting. This is the first time we've used this equipment, and I'm going to introduce the gentleman who's helping us moderate this in just a moment. First item on the agenda, call to order. Review and adopt the agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add an agenda item for discussion only, please. That item's a discussion on the 3-lot minor subdivision on Natchez Lane. Tuesday, I received a call from the property owner, Kami Johnson. He had several questions about the letter he received from Guilford County Planning and Oliver Bass. The planning board appeal that was not heard in February. He also saw on the agenda tonight an item where we're going to be discussing waiving an ordinance. And he had some questions about the public information request he put in, I think, last month, and wanted to address those to council. So the item I'd like to add is just simply discussion on 3-lot minor subdivision on Natchez Lane.
We'll make that item number 11.
Okay.
And based on a letter we received from Tom Medlin, the town attorney, on Tuesday of this week, items 1 and 2, we need to dismiss and replace those with a motion to rescind the rezoning decision of February 15th, 2021 for case number 20-12 STPL 08358, and to reconsider the case based on a miscommunication between the planning department and the petitioners. So I'd like to make that change, eliminate 1 and 2, and add that motion to rescind. Any other changes or additions? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the 2 changes just communicated for February 11th, 2021.
I'll second that, and I'll call the question. Darren?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
Jim?
Jim's aye. Before we start, Mr. Mayor, can we just ask Tom Medlin if he's hearing us okay and everything?
Yes, this is Tom Medlin, and I am able to hear everyone very clearly. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I
Great.
hear him better than I hear him sitting beside me.
I'll be sure not to whisper anything then.
Me too.
The Brian Cox with audio and lights is the one who's been working on the installation of the new Zoom and YouTube equipment for us. I was just going to give him an opportunity to just say a few things about the protocol here. I think the quality is going to be significantly greater. So, in terms of rattling papers and things like that, I'll let him address those issues.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for introduction. I'm Brian Cox with Audio and Light Incorporated in Greensboro. And I'm here tonight to make sure everything goes well. We might have a few technical glitches, but we'll work through them if we do. And as the mayor said, I just want everybody to know that our microphones are much more sensitive now, and this is all going through into a YouTube stream and to Zoom, so everybody can hear, hopefully, can hear much better than you did before. And we're also archiving this for posterity and for your needs in the future. So thank you again for the opportunity to work with you guys, and we look forward to a long relationship.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, review and approve the minutes for the February 11th, 2021 meeting. You have those in your packet. Is there any corrections or additions?
I do have a correction to request. Looking over these minutes this afternoon, I noticed that there, and I'm equally to blame as much as this, but when we went into closed session in February, as we were exiting out the public with Zoom, we failed to take a vote of cancel to go into closed session. So we need that vote of cancel. There is a vote of cancel in the draft of the minutes, a 5-0 vote. And I believe that needs to be taken out of the minutes because that vote did not happen. And I know that because I listened to the audio of that. So that's,
I did too.
so,
Make a motion to rescind that.
yeah, I'll make a motion to rescind the vote of cancel, the 5-0 vote of cancel, to go in, that went into closed session from the February, meeting, town council meeting.
Have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Call a question, Theron? Jimmy?
Aye.
Derek?
Derek, is aye?
Jim?
Aye.
And I.
Mr. Mayor, one thing I just want to ask on the minutes. I still don't have December and January. Do we have an update on when we will get those?
I'm working on them. I can't give you a definite date. I'm in the middle of doing water reports that are due April 1st and June 1st, and with the lawn bids coming in and items that it's been a very busy couple of weeks. So I'm working on them, but I can't give you a definite date. I hope to have them done by April.
Okay.
I think it's important that they are done by April.
Next item, board and administrative report. Alicia?
We currently have 607 customers on the water system. We used 268,310 gallons of water from January 20th to February 11th on the bill. I'm working with our meter and transponder supplier on a project to get a cost estimate on switching out the old manual read meters to electronic read meters in the most dangerous areas of our meter reader stops, which are like Highway 158, Highway 68, and Highway 65. There's approximately 107 meters, and so I'm getting estimates on the cost to replace those with the transponders so that she doesn't have to get out and walk up and down the sides of the road, and what Gene would charge us for that, and we'll discuss the prices in the budget meeting. I worked with the North Carolina Rural Water Association the past 2 weeks on getting our annual local water supply report done. It has to be in the state's hands by April 1st. We will also start working on our CCR report. It's called the Consumer Confidence Report. That is due June the 1st. Our water operator, Gary Machunas, gave me our weekly and monthly BACT results, which were absent for bacteria. He also pulled the quarterly TTHMs, which were well within the normal limits. And we were also due this year for our 9-year asbestos testing, and those results were negative. Boone Meadows has just been approved by the state to start construction. North Ridge is getting ready to start phase 5 of their subdivision. The mayor and I had a productive fact-finding Zoom meeting with Hazen and Sawyer and Courtney Driver from Winston-Salem back in the month of February, and you guys have received a copy of the reports and the slides from that, and if anybody in the public requests them, we'll be happy to share those with you. We're just talking about future water demands and what needs the town will need to continue as we grow. We did close the SunTrust account and move the money that was there with Fidelity for convenience sake. We advertised for and received the bids for lawn and landscaping for this coming year. I am also currently working on our hazard mitigation plan for Guilford County. they had sent me some emails and asked me for updates on contact information and anything that's changed at the town. Unfortunately, when I went to the notebook and picked it up, it had not been updated since 2015, so I had to do a lot of work to get that up to date and current with the information. And before I can send it to them, I have to do a resolution, and you guys have to adopt it in order for me to send it to them. I also received a email from Republic Waste. Good grief, and what did I do with it? Anyway, I got an email from Republic Waste like day before yesterday, and I had a copy of it here, and now it has left me. But anyhow, you know where yours is right away? I had it. Where did it go? Shucks. Anyway, basically what they're saying is, I believe starting in May, they are going to go to the every other week on the recycle pickup. They are going to be going around between now and then and removing all of the smaller cans and replacing them with the 96-gallon carts. Let's see. It will be starting in May. He did promise that they will be sending emails, they will be sending information in the mail, and they will also be advertising as to when all this will start taking place and when we will officially go to the every other week pickup. He said that they would start changing out the carts next week, starting on the 17th. And that's all I have.
Any questions? Next item, Planning Board, report, Tim Jones.
Good evening, everybody. This is Tim Jones. I'm the current chairman of the planning board, and I didn't expect to have to speak tonight. I noticed when I walked in that my name was listed here. I don't know how that got on the agenda because last time I looked at it, it wasn't there. But anyway, we're still meeting by Zoom, looking forward to being able to meet in person sometime soon. Not aware of any difficulties that we need to report to council. You know, just good to be here in person, see y'all, and hope we have a good meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tim.
You.
Minutes Committee, Derek.
Yeah, I've got a couple things. One, wanted to get the dates out in front of us for the Christmas parade this year. It's going to be on our traditional second Saturday of December. That date is December the 11th. And the full intent is to go back to the traditional parade where we get to see everybody and shake their hand and wish them Merry Christmas. So we'll plan for that date. Also, tentatively, Saturday, December 4th, we do plan to have an event here at Town Hall in terms of a Christmas tree lighting and some other things that have been discussed. In more of a near-term event the Events Committee would like to do, just driving around town and noticing there's a lot of trash kind of in the utility easements on the side of the road. So the Events Committee has the idea they'd like to do a spring cleaning community day on Saturday, May the 1st. I did speak with the folks, I guess they're with the DOT that do the Adopt a Highway program. We can get vests from those guys, gloves, trash bags. That event would be on a Saturday, May 1st. And then they would arrange to have those trash bags picked up, likely that following Monday. The Events Committee will be responsible for setting guidelines, getting volunteers, their hold harmless release forms, mapping out the logistics of the event, and communicating this to local schools, youth organizations, and scouts and churches. The Events Committee's request from council is $500 from the Events Committee line item in the budget so that we can do an advertisement in the Northwest Observer on their Thursday, April 29th issue, which is 2 days before the event. So are there any questions or concerns, comments?
Have you
Darren, got
conferred
anything?
with the attorney on any of this, as far as the liability part?
I have not. I'll be happy to.
Well, you wanna,
He can chime in.
yeah, that'd probably okay or no-K real quickly.
Okay.
Tom?
Tom, is it okay if we pick up trash on the highway?
I think it is. I will, I'll give it some more thought, but off the top of my head, I don't see a problem with that.
We can send you the, I think we have a volunteer hold harmless release form that we can send you. And you can look over that.
Okay.
Any other concerns? Happy to discuss that with you. But, so are y'all okay with it if Tom, based off Tom's recommendation, or any advice he has?
Sure.
That'd be the only thing I'd think about is the legality of the town itself
Yeah.
versus the
I mean,
committee.
I've certainly thought about,
He's comfortable with that, and he sees that we would be held harmless as a town. Yeah, the other part's just the logistics and.
Sure.
And the gathering, so I don't see anything further. If he researches it and gives us a letter or something in writing, we're good to go at that point.
So are we gonna do it under the, guise of, the DOT's program? Are we going to, cause I think they have their own, liability procedures.
Okay.
That should release us. As long as we're kinda doing it under them,
that we would be, yes.
I think that would be the best
I
avenue.
spoke to them, I believe it was Tuesday, the Guilford County contact with that program, and it was a straightforward conversation. That topic did not come up, though, but I can ask that question.
Okay. Anything else, Derek?
I guess I'll wait to the April meeting to make a motion for the events committee to have a $500 spending authority, so we can do the advertisement in the paper.
Isn't that in your budget?
It is, but
Next item, property committee, Jim or Jimmy?
You got anything?
Well, I'll do real quick and I'll let Jimmy take over. Obviously, we're going to look at long bids tonight. I know Stokesdale Parks and Rec with soccer is starting up probably within the next week or two. So we should start seeing them out there. Other than that, I don't have a lot. I am going to start looking for bids for some sort of building or something, but that's a little bit long-term process. And we'll probably be doing that within the next 30 days. You want to cover what your door repairs you did?
Well, I mean, I just put batteries in the sink. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it works now. And we got, I think we got one toilet that's not flushing automatically. And I've got something on the agenda tonight for that, but all the push buttons are working, and every time I've gone down there, they seem to be flushed. Of course, you know, so it might be something we want to talk about. Those things are probably going to start going out, but the push button is working, so.
Okay. Next item, financials, Kim.
Hello, everyone. All right, I have a few things to talk about tonight. I'm gonna start with the financials first, as far as the balance sheet for the general fund. You can see our Bank of Oak Ridge checking, we have $195,041.37. Our CDRs are $2,585,275.71. The bank, Fidelity Bank, our checking is $205,888.26. Petty cash is $150, and SunTrust is $0, because we have actually moved that over now. And you will see at the bottom, if you do have a copy of this, our accounts receivable, which is our reimbursement, our water reimbursement amount. And we also have a receivable from the water enterprise account this time as well for Gary's payroll. I highlighted in blue, we actually just approved those 3 CDRs last week, Derek and I did, to be renewed. And we have 3 more before the end of this fiscal year that will be renewed. And if you can you can definitely look on there and see that our percentage, our interest is dropping significantly. That's what I wanted to go over with you on that page. And as Councilman Foy requested, I did put the interest rate and the maturity date out to the side of the CDRs on the balance sheet for going forward. With the budget versus actual, I just wanted to make note on your sheet, in yellow, you will see those are the amendments that we have approved. I'm sorry, that council has approved. And if you look under the planning and zoning fees, in that there is an amount of $15,000 that actually belongs to a performance bond. So that amount under planning and zoning actually needs to be $41,417.75 of revenue that we have received. And I just wanted you to also maybe look at the state collected revenues. I know that looks extremely low at this time, and that is because we have 3 more deposits that should go in, which should be March 15th, June 15th, and then September 15th on that. And when you come down to the bottom of the budget versus actual in the general, you will see that we have reimbursed to date $79,390.16, and that is from July 1 through January 31. And you'll see the total down there for the total, which includes February, of $97,252.57, which is the total for the water reimbursement. And that is all that I do have. Yes, fine. Let me flip over to the water. Does anyone have any questions on the general before I close? Okay. We'll go to the water then. All right. On the water account, the balance sheet, our CDRs total $498,571.66, and we have 2 of those that will be renewing before this fiscal year ends, that will mature. We did get the Capital Reserve Fund account opened this week, and we have moved $50,000 from account 0504 to open up the CRF account, which will be end in 0345. We did get that taken care of. All right, and let's see. And on this, you will see, well, this is, let me flip back over here. The same on the water enterprise account, you will see your highlighted in yellow are budget amendments that council has approved. And this is your new budget versus actual, actual, yeah, that's right, budget versus actual with the amendments approved in there. And then you'll see the overhead down at the bottom, which is the same from the general fund that the water has reimbursed or will end up reimbursing $97,252.57. I think that's all my notes on that one. Oh, our our accounts receivable in water is $36,702.17. This does include inactive accounts. And that's something that I do want to get with Chris and Elisa about in the future in regards to those inactive accounts and going to proceed or how we're going to go forward with those. And does anybody have any questions on the water account? Okay.
Next item on the agenda, citizens' comments from the floor. Now, there may be some people here, but there also may be some people zooming in, so just let us know that you wish to speak, and we'll recognize you. Martin.
My name is Mark Nadell from 8211 Wendy Gale Drive, Stokesdale. I see on tonight's agenda there's a discussion and I guess a vote on a new planning board member. One of the things, I had some conversation with 1 or 2 people on the council, and I wanted to make sure that the process is followed the way it should be followed, at least the way it's been followed as I've seen it. Generally, from what I understand, when someone is appointed, and I have no opposition to anybody be appointed, because I think we need somebody now, we just recently had a resignation, that person would get appointed and then would be appointed as an alternate. From an alternate, they would move up. Attendance is taken at every meeting, and based on the attendance, I believe that's one of the major criteria is as somebody gets moved up. The discussion I had with one of the council members was he didn't think that was really the policy. So I just want to make sure that as we go through the process, it's followed, the process is followed the way it should be followed.
Well, part of the process is they have to take the classes online.
Right. But just so somebody does, and the reason I say that is because I think that there's a lot of, there are a number of alternates, and I think, personally, I think it would be a slap in the face if we put somebody on the board and an alternate who's been an alternate for maybe a year or two, who's been coming to meetings, participating, doesn't get chosen. I don't think that's really the right way, and I know that's not the way I believe we've been doing it. So I just want to make sure that the whole board is aware that's the process, as I understand it, unless I'm incorrect.
Do you mind if I speak? Or,
Do you mind?
so Mark, I think you're talking about me because
Yes.
you asked me those questions. And my perspective, or what I shared with you, is that I'm not aware of any process of who gets appointed or not. And if there is one, cool, there is one. But my perspective would be to appoint the most qualified member for the planning board, so.
Mark, that was a policy it wasn't actually put in place. Steve Louis was the chairman, and I believe you brought that up, and he started doing that, but it was never, I don't think it was ever voted on. If it was, I'd like to see the vote.
Right,
And-
because
and-
that was,
and it may have, I'm not saying it hasn't been, because I ain't been.
because that was the
all
process by which I went through. When I
Yeah.
got appointed to the
Right.
board, I was told I could not go on to the planning board, I have to be an alternate first. That's the way. The training's another issue.
Yeah.
And
I'm just
again,
saying there's no.
and I understand your point about you want the most qualified person, there's no question about that. But if somebody is coming to the meetings on a regular basis and they're participating, to me, that shows an interest on that person's part, and maybe they don't have as much of the qualifications, but they have the desire, and I think the desire is half the battle also, so.
That's a good point.
And that's really, that was just my point. It's,
a good
I'm not against or for anybody, I mean, it's just a matter of.
If I might, there is a policy and procedure manual for the planning board specifically in the breezeway. And there are policies about every step that it takes. And you're welcome to read it anytime you like.
Right.
Has it got the dates that it was voted on and all the minutes and all that?
Yes. Well, it doesn't have the minutes in the policy and
I mean, it's
procedure
got the dates
book,
where we
but
could go
it's
back and look
got
at the minutes.
The policies and procedures that were voted on, yes.
Are we taking attendance for the alternates that are at the meetings?
He does.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, my name is William Jones. I live at 5938 Kenville Green Circle in Kernersville. I'm here tonight because I was a council member for about 8 years and still own some property in Stokesdale, so I still consider myself qualified to be here. Contrary to what I've been told before, I didn't have any business being here because I didn't live in Stokesdale. That was funny. I'm here because I'm concerned about the water system. I'm concerned about Mayor Flint overstepping his boundaries again 5 or 6 months ago and signing an agreement with a developer that was developing a subdivision in Forsyth County, signing an agreement for the town of Stokesdale to supply water for that subdivision. And it sort of reminds me of the tree business. We were kept in the dark me and Councilman Jones were kept in the dark for 5 or 6 months after the tree business, no financials, and nobody told us what was going on. And you had the same thing here. The mayor signed an agreement, and I'm sure one council member knew, but I'm assuming the other three probably didn't know, or I was led to believe you didn't know. And so the problem is, even after knowing that, a motion was made and you voted to sell water out of the county. No policy has been written. I think it's very dangerous to start, especially allowing the mayor just free will to go ahead and do whatever he wants to do without considering council. It's a violation of state law, actually, because you are the council members have the same authority as the mayor. The mayor has no authority to go out on his own and make any decisions, make any deals or agreements to provide water. But I think in that instance, a public hearing would have been a lot better. And let the public stand up here and tell you what they think about you selling water out of the county or out of the town, because it's going to affect them at some point. You're going to run out of water capacity, and you're going to be running water lines and stuff back to Winston. Thank you.
I would address that, but we've talked about that before. So anyone else? Do we have anyone on Zoom or YouTube?
We have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Catherine, I didn't see you.
Masked or unmasked?
Doesn't matter. Just give us your
Helpful?
name and
Okay.
address.
All right, my name is Catherine Buntoff, and I live at 8202 McCrory Road, Stokesdale. In March 2016, then Mayor Randy Braswell contacted the North Carolina Division of Parks and Recreation to remove Stokesdale from the Mountains to Sea trail map. I was stunned that a councilman, our mayor, could unilaterally remove such a community-focused project from public consideration without a vote by council. He acted swiftly on a narrow vision of what he and a small but vocal group of Stokesdale residents believe this town is and should be. Mr. Braswell's decision decidedly shaped land use and community development in our town. He didn't feel like people were for it, and he certainly wasn't for it. It didn't fit his vision of Stokesdale, and that was more or less the end of it. In 2019, Mr. Braswell ran for town council with the slogan, "Make Stokesdale Great Again," a slogan lacking in both originality and clarity, and nodding to a vague, nostalgic past with neither clear example nor vivid description. But Mr. Braswell had by then already chosen not to make Stokesdale great again by refusing to take advantage of our town's railway history to encourage economic development and improve quality of life. It is a curious situation then that Mr. Braswell aims to serve on the planning board. And based on his past service on the town council, I, as a citizen, cannot take this lightly. As a resident who sees the importance of wise decisions with an eye to the future, instead of impulsive decisions with an eye fixed on the past, I am here speaking for the future of our town and that its decisions be taken into more careful consideration than was the case with Mr. Braswell's refusal of the trail on behalf of our entire town. Mr. Braswell's vision of Stokesdale maintains committed to defending individual property rights, and I can both respect and appreciate that priority. Shouldn't we all do with our property what we wish? But he has also illustrated a failure of vision, both of our town's future and of its government's role in fostering a quality of life for its citizens. A town, once a town, must collectively envision its future and strive to make it a reality. I contend that Mr. Braswell may see our town as a good place, even a great place, and a place where a man remains largely unhindered by his government's limited reach. But he does not seem to see our town as a place of collective stewardship. Randy Braswell's actions to ensure the Mountains to Sea Trail would not pass through Stokesdale should remind all of us that the decisions of an opinionated few in positions of power continue to impact the lives of all of us, regardless of the soundness of those decisions. A lack of vision can indeed stamp a town as the kind of place that was, instead of a place that is and will be.
Anyone else? Then the next item on the agenda, we're going to readdress rezoning case 2012 STPL 08358. Property is at 9157 US Highway 158. It's a Gonzalez property. And on February 15th, we voted to change the zoning on that from AG to RS40. And we've had communication between the town planner Oliver Bass and Mr. Medlin and Mr. and Ms. Gonzalez, who are on Zoom, and myself. And what we want to do, and Tom, help me make sure I get this right, want to make a motion to reconsider the case based upon a miscommunication between the planning department and the petitioners. And I guess I'll make that motion just to get it on the floor, if I can get a second, and then we can allow Oliver and Tom to address the situation.
I'll second.
Have a motion to second. Any discussion? Call a question?
I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Oh, we're going to.
We're gonna vote before,
Huh?
we're gonna vote before we hear what they have to say.
We're just going to vote on the motion to reconsider,
Okay, that's fine.
based on our attorney's advice. So, Darren, you voted yes, Jimmy?
We're still gonna have discussion now.
We're still going what?
We're still gonna have discussion.
Oh, yeah,
and then-
yeah.
and then vote.
Oliver's going to present the case in just a
Okay,
second.
I'm an aye.
Derek,
I'm sorry, what are we voting on?
the motion to reconsider the case.
Oh, okay, yes.
And Jim?
Yes.
And I. Oliver, are you online?
Yes, I am. I'm Oliver Bass, Guilford County Planning.
Do you want to just bring us up to date with where we are and why we're doing this sort of extraordinary procedure?
Yes, this is a case where the applicant came to ask me what, first they wanted to put a single-wide manufactured home on their property as a second dwelling, and they asked me what they needed to do in order to accomplish this. The property is zoned AG, and in order to put a single-wide manufactured home on the property, it has to be zoned AG. Well, they also wanted to create a 4-lot subdivision on a parent tract that would require a rezoning in order to create the subdivision. So there was two things they wanted to do. One, they wanted to locate a single-wide manufactured home on their property, and second, they wanted to create a 4-lot subdivision. It had to be rezoned to RS40. That requirement wasn't adequately communicated to the applicant. They applied for the rezoning, and the rezoning was approved. But once the rezoning was approved, they could not do what they initially intended to do in regards to placing the manufactured home on the site. So if they want to have a manufactured home, it has to be zoned AG. If they want to do the subdivision, it has to be zoned RS40. So I discussed this with them, and the best remedy that the remedy would be, based on the information that they provided, they should have asked for RS40MH, which is an overlay, manufactured home overlay district. However, that was not communicated to them at the time, so now they are in a position where they cannot do what they originally intended with the manufactured home. So it would need to be reconsidered. It would need to be rezoned. In order to do what they want to do, it would need to be rezoned RS40 with the MH overlay.
So, Mr. Bass, you're saying that they didn't have to do anything to be able to do what they wanted to do?
So if they wanted to put the single-wide manufactured home on the site, it could have been done in the AG zoning district. In order to do the subdivision, they have to rezone it RS40.
Right. So what you're suggesting, that we rescind the zoning?
Yes, after conversation with the town attorney, the best option would be to rescind the zoning, reconsider it, and I believe it would revert back to the AZ zoning district until the rezoning case. And Tom, you can, Mr. Mellon, you can even correct me if I'm wrong. It would revert back to the AG zoning district. And then at the time it can be reconsidered through another hearing to go to RS40 with a manufactured home overlay, which would allow them to subdivide the property.
Oliver, help me out if I want to make sure I've got the facts right, and this is the way I explained it to Gonzalez. If they go back to an agricultural zoning, they can have a 2-acre lot. And on that 2-acre lot, they can have a primary resident, And then
Correct.
behind that, they can have a single wide.
Correct.
And then there's roughly 1.8 acres left on that, so that would be a separate lot that they get to build one more house on. One of the situations on this, Gary Flynn owned this property years ago, and he still has some, his dad has some, or his father's estate. They cut off 2 tracks, and if Mr. Gonzalez had wanted to do the 4 lots, then that would have kicked it into a major subdivision. Now, he had a major subdivision. He could have done that in the RS 40, but he wouldn't have been able to put the single wide in the RS 40 zoning. And so that's the reason we're back here tonight. The Gonzalez just really want to do a home and a single wide on the 2 acre tract in agricultural zoning. They want to have a separate 1.78 or 1.8 acre, whatever it is, the remainder tract zoned to agriculture where they could have a house. Obviously, you can do a minor subdivision ag zoning, but to do anything more than 2 lots would require a rezoning, and that would kill him on the mobile home. Tom, I'll let you make sure I've told everything correct. And Mr. and Ms. Gonzalez, I see them on the Zoom, and I just want to verify with them that that's what they're wanting to do in terms of the house and single wide on a 2 acre lot and 1.78 acre on the remainder tract. Mr. or Ms. Gonzalez, is that correct information?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and we have an email to that effect. Tom, are you okay with that? And then we just need to make a motion to rescind the zoning and take it back to, or just rescind it, or should we specify
Right.
that it goes back to ag?
The information that I had matches your summary, and we do have the email from Mr. and Mrs. Gonzalez, and thank you for sending that clarified their position. And due to a miscommunication and a mistake, I think it is appropriate for the council to consider a motion to rescind that decision, previous decision, and then that would put the case back with the planning department. And Mr. and Mrs. Gonzalez can get with Mr. Bass, and I think they're gonna, at that point, probably withdraw their petition. And so therefore, their property will just be
Go back to A.
remain as AG, and they can move forward. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay. One of the other things I think we should consider, this situation was lack of communication between us and the Gonzalez. I believe they paid something like about $1,000, $1,100. I'm not exactly sure for the rezoning fee. I think what we should do on that, they're gonna have to do a 2-lot subdivision and submit a site plan. I would say that we give them credit for that against the site plan. So I will make a motion that we rescind the decision from February the 15th on this property and revert it back to its original agricultural zoning with the provision that we give Mr. and Ms. Gonzalez credit for the money spent on the planning fees and apply those towards the site plan. You sent me basically a thing from the surveyor showing the 2 lots, and so that'll just go to the planning board, and that would be it. Well, it wouldn't go to the planning board. That'll be that would just be approved administratively by the town planner, right, Oliver?
Yeah, by county staff.
Okay, so it doesn't go to the planning board. Okay, I make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call a question. Darren?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I. Open sealed bids for the new lawn and landscaping service vendors. Alicia, I'll let you or Jim or Jimmy, we had 9 people or 9 companies that presented proposals.
Were they all sealed?
Still are.
I hope so.
If you would, just call out the company name so we can record it, so we can make a list, that'd be helpful.
Now, we're concerned with the loan and maintenance, we're not concerned with the add-ons, we're not awarding the bid because of add-ons, because we told these guys that we may use other companies for add-ons, you know. It's not gonna be a across-the-board thing, so. But we do wanna keep it to where we can see, you know, what they're saying about the add-ons, in case we need them.
So this is only for grass cutting?
It's for the maintenance, you know, blowing the sidewalks and trimming the bushes and, you know, but if we want mulch or anything like that, we're not gonna tie our hands to one company. If we ever want any.
The first one I'm opening is from Green Stripes Lawn Care out of Pleasant Garden.
Elisa, you're not at a microphone, so be sure when you announce them that you're in your microphone, so everybody else on Zoom or
Here, Lisa.
YouTube.
Right there.
Should we go ahead and announce the amount?
Yeah.
So if you wanna,
Say it right out loud,
yeah, if you wanna,
that's what it's all about.
Who's keeping the written minutes in? Just write the, yeah, I would, just so we have a cost.
Well, not everybody apparently is giving a total lump sum. They're broken down by jobs, so.
I'll tell you what, Elisa, if you'll hand them to me, I'll go through them while you're calling them out, and I'll try to figure them out real quick, and we can read them all.
Okay.
And I'll,
This was Green Stripes Lawn Care again.
okay.
Did those folks come for the walk around?
I think so, yes, best I remember.
The second one is Southern Cuts Lawn Care. They're out of Colfax. And their total for just the lawn care and landscaping is $37,500. They do have separate prices, obviously, for aeration and snow plowing, shoveling, that type of thing.
That's what we're told to do.
Oh, great, this one's taped. A Plus Landscaping and Maintenance out of Greensboro.
Hang on just a second, let me
I
get called
don't.
up.
Okay. This one also appears to be broken up into segments.
What was the second one?
The second one
Yeah.
is Southern Cuts.
37.5.
Okay. Give me just a second.
How much longer is our landscape company on to the end of this month? We
Yes.
don't get a mowing out of it, because I noticed some of the grass is.
Lisa.
on the road a little
I
bit.
can't answer that, that's you and Jim. I would assume.
We're paying.
Yeah, they need to be out here finishing that up.
Okay, this bid is from Turf Titans.
Turf what?
Titans. Titan.
Yes.
Where are they out of?
Don't know.
Who is? You say,
Tim Inman. $27,480 a year.
27,000.
Just a second, I'm still trying to look for the cost on this one.
Green stripes, that's their number. It's all good.
Derek found a number that I didn't see at the bottom of this one. Green Stripes is $37,404 a year. Dynoscapes Lawn Care. $27,000 a year.
27 even.
Yes.
Where they out of?
I have to come back to A plus. Are you writing all those down?
Look on the front page. No? Got fancy, don't they?
Don't know. Now, these numbers that I'm given are for the basic services. There are other services that, you know, each of them have included, so.
They don't have a return address.
Alicia, just for some clarification, I thought I heard you say that did not include aerating in one of those bids. But the spec that we sent out, general scope of work, called for aerating in the fall. But it does not include any pre-emergence or fertilize in any of the bids, is that correct?
I mean, some of them have put it in there, some have not, it just depends. I mean, it's like he said, they asked for a bottom line for mowing, weeding, blowing the sidewalks.
Aeration.
weeding, whatever, but what's in the scope they asked for, and then anything else they did ask them to price it.
Okay.
But it'll be.
So these numbers you're giving us are just for this, okay?
What we did was we did the basics, just like the company we got now, and they had all the side items that wasn't in the basics. I mean, we've done basically the same thing, and they're supposed to aerate, because the big number with the company that we got, they weren't fertilizing, I mean, they charged extra mulch. And what we did, instead of saying, we're gonna use y'all, we said, we're gonna leave that open in case, you know, we're trying to save money. That's what we told them. We're trying to get as good a job we can for the least amount of money.
Okay, this is Turner's Yards and Mower 2. They are out of Stokesdale. $37,425 a year.
Are you missing any? Other than A plus?
3 plus is what we need.
Okay, so A plus is 25.2, but it does not include aeration.
How much?
25.2.
Did they break down aerating?
It says it does not include aerating, so this,
They didn't give a separate number for aerating?
let me find that page. It just, I think it said it was a separate billable aerating and overseeding. But we, when we walked around, we were very clear that aeration had to be included with, but not the overseeding and not any spraying or anything.
Okay.
So it says
I mean, it was on the bid sheet.
well, I'll read it. It's a little confusing, actually. Aeration and overseed to tall fescue. Aeration overseeding September through October, weather depending. Aeration overseeding is considered extra billable item for $40 per 1,000 square foot.
40 per thousand?
Yeah.
We got a lot of 1,000 foots out there.
1,600 an acre, that'd be $16,000.
Yeah, okay.
So the aeration is not included, the way I read that. So, all right, go ahead.
Simmons Lawn Care out of Stokesdale. $34,500. Green Ridge Landscaping, $34,500.
They have an address.
Yeah, somewhere here,
Stokesdale.
I think. No.
No.
In Green Ridge, Chris Harrell.
Yeah,
It's Stokesdale.
Yeah, it's Stokesdale. It's Chris Harrell's company. Tom, while we're doing this, Tom, did we get that letter out to, our current vendor?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you. Do you feel that that's all we need to do to satisfy this relationship?
Yes. I mean, the contract speaks for itself, so.
We got an email from him.
Okay.
Excellence Lawn Care and Landscaping out of Stokesdale, $24,000.
Even?
Mm-hmm,
Check got the aeration in it?
yes.
What was it, lawn care and what?
Excellence Lawn Care and Landscaping.
Landscape.
So that's the 9 bids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought those other papers over there might be big.
The closed session.
Well,
So let's, so, is there, let me ask this, is there anyone here that, represent any of these companies that would like to talk on their bid or clarify them? Anybody here?
I would. Oh,
State your name, and let us know what company you're with.
I'm Shanna Sanford with A Plus Landscaping and Maintenance.
Okay,
To clarify the aeration and overseeding, when we did the walkthrough, the tall fescue, I was more concerned about around the main hall, so the office. And we did not have clarification as to how far that should go. So we left that the extra billable item. Because we weren't anticipating you guys wanting to aerate and overseed all of the parcels that we estimated on. So the water treatment center and the guard tower or the tower beside the school, because that is to be taken care of also, right?
that is correct. The, scope of work was just for aeration, not overseeding, just for the aeration of the entire park property and town hall property, to be included in with the monthly cost. And what we would do if we chose to, do seeding and fertilizer at that time, it would be obviously an extra billable item.
Yeah, we can aerate it with no problem. It was just that 40 per 1,000 is including the aerating, the seed, and the fertilizer.
Okay, okay. So you could, based on your bid that you've presented to us, you would concede that would include aeration of the entire, just the park area, not the soccer fields, of course.
Yes, sir.
Additional cost.
is it additional cost or is the cost included?
We will include aerating all of the turf area without the soccer fields included, with no additional cost. The additional cost would come from the materials. So the seed and the fertilizer would be the additional costs.
Right, well, that's gonna be the same with everybody.
And that was 25-2.
25-2.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to contact some of the bottom person and see the qualifications and equipment. Is that correct, Jim?
Yeah, I think,
And then go
what
up
would
from
be
there?
appropriate is to, review some of the ones that are, closer to the lower cost to make sure they're equal in scope and they have, the proper insurance and things like that, before we make a decision.
Well, you got excellence, 24, you got A+, 25, 2,
Dynascope's
Diamond
27.
Stitch 27.
yep, Dynascopes is 27. So we got 3 there.
Turf
that-
Titans
that-
is 27.
Turf Titans?
27,480.
Yeah. Well, we've got 3, so I say we start at the bottom. Make sure they're qualified, make sure they got the equipment to do the job, insurance. And,
Okay, can we do that as a park committee and just review the bottom 3 then to make sure that everything's included?
Thomas, yeah, but I think the council's gonna have to make a final vote on it.
absolutely, we don't
Oh,
wanna make a
Okay,
decision.
just
Yeah, we just wanted to present, make sure that we weren't
We didn't.
missing something.
Fine.
We didn't do this to make the decision.
And if we have to,
If we need a special meeting, we can do that.
Okay.
Before,
so just to clarify, comparing apples to apples, the basic scope of work on this new contract is the same as the basic scope of work for the existing vendor.
I believe 99% yes.
Okay.
The only difference is we're not tying ourselves into anything other than the main thing, I mean.
No, I mean,
you know.
that's good. I mean, we got 9 different bids here, and the highest bid we got was $6,500 less than the current vendor. And the lowest bid we have is $20,000 a year lower than the current vendor. So, we're gonna realize somewhere between 15 and 40%, annualized cost savings. And that's one of our big expense line items.
Okay.
That'll help offset the revenue we're gonna miss from the
Jim, let
interest
us
rates
know
line.
if we need to have a special call meeting, we will, just,
We will, we'll do it this week so we can get this decision made and move forward.
We need to, me and you need to do a walk around with, I mean, we can do one at a time or whatever you wanna do, or do all 3 of them, say,
Okay.
But, and then report back to them. And I mean, if y'all wanna do a walk around too, 3 of us can't walk around. So if y'all wanna do a walk around, feel free to do it too. We're not trying to do this to push
I
nobody.
walked around with Vic
Yeah,
several times.
Let's, we'll plan on meeting Jimmy, maybe, soon, the next couple of days, just to go over the actual bids and reread them and make sure we didn't miss anything, and then we can reach out to them.
today's Thursday.
Yeah.
okay, next item,
Saturday.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
next item on the agenda, discussion what the definition of a major subdivision is.
This is just a one-liner here. I just want to ask this because I want to understand subdivision major. A subdivision involving more than 4 lots or requiring new public streets for access to interior property, or requiring extension of public sewer or water line, or requiring a waiver or a variance from any requirement of this ordinance. I don't understand that. Why, if you got a minor subdivision and you're needing to get a waiver, of course, you're in a pinch, you're trying to get something done on that, and then that throws you into a major subdivision. I mean, it's almost like the waiver's useless. I mean, why would you, that's what the waiver is for. Why is that language there? Is there a reason for that? I'd like to ask the planner. I mean, I think you're giving a waiver to help somebody out to where they can use their property for use.
No, a waiver is giving them special use.
Yeah.
Or an exception to a rule or something like that, but I'm gonna let Oliver and Tom talk about that, not me.
Yeah, but you're throwing yourself into a lot more mess.
No, you're not. That's common language in almost every ordinance. I've got Oak Ridge right here, and it's exactly the same language.
know.
Everybody, all these little towns adopted Guilford County's ordinance when we incorporated 31 years ago.
Yeah.
And every town basically has the same language in terms of what a major subdivision is. There are very few things that you could waive in a minor subdivision that would kick it into
It says a waiver.
yeah, and they were granted a waiver.
No, no,
whereas-
I'm not talking about any specific case. I'm talking about, I see this affecting a lot of different people. I'm not talking about the case that just come up. I'm talking about any case, because it looks to me like it makes it harder, on folks when they're trying to make it a little bit easier on them. And just because Guilford County does something, don't mean it's right, or
No, but
everybody else does.
when most every town in North Carolina does, I think it has some precedent. What you're doing, any waiver or any variance is given a developer or a property owner special treatment. And sometimes when you get that special treatment, you give up something. It's like if I go from an agricultural zoning to an RS 40, I give up the right to put a mobile home. I give up the right for a duplex and those kinds of things. You need to make a conscious decision before you ask for a waiver, knowing that if you do that, you're going to kick into a major subdivision, and then you may lose some things, you may gain something. I don't know.
John, I don't know if,
They have to give rights up all the time, give your land up.
if a waiver is in itself special treatment. I mean, a waiver is looked at, what is it? I mean, the law acknowledges that the strict words of an ordinance sometimes may negatively impact the property owner. So my understanding of a waiver, it only can be granted for 3 or 4 different equal or better performance. I don't know all that stuff. So it's not like it's given out as a special treatment or a favor.
Yes.
The law allows it.
You can ask on a minor subdivision, you can do an unpaved road, a private lane, a limit of I think it's 600 or 800 feet for a maximum of 4 lots. You could ask for a waiver, I want to do a minor subdivision, but give me 10 lots instead of 4. You could ask for a waiver, I don't want to pave a road, I want 10 lots. You can ask for anything in a waiver. That doesn't necessarily mean you should get it. But if you're going to disallow the difference between a major subdivision and a minor subdivision, you might as well just say, hey, you can do anything in a major, or that you can do, anything in a minor, you can do in a major. I don't want to see the town of Stokesdale developed on unpaved roads. I don't want to see these private lanes that aren't up to standard where a fire truck or 2 fire trucks can't go and pass to go to a fire. And that's what we given is when you give somebody a waiver, they got special, they gave in one case we're talking about, instead of having 4 houses on a private lane, the planning board gave them a waiver of 7.
So
Now,
let's talk.
when they did that, that probably saved the developer $100,000 or $75,000. He didn't have to pave the road. And so to me, that's a special privilege.
Well, let's talk about the planning board's reason for granting that waiver. My understanding is that it was for safety, which makes complete sense, because if those lots were not going to be on the private road, they were going to have 3 driveways coming out on Hall River Road. And that's located almost right across from the Food Line Shopping Center. So you're going to have traffic taking a left out of Food Line to come on Hall River, accelerating, and you're going to have 3 driveways here. So, from my perspective, it's much safer, and the waiver, definitely was merited. I guess Jimmy's question is if any property owner gets a waiver to do, a minor subdivision, what about the fact that it's a waiver makes it a major? Because with a major, there's a whole, new set of laws. I can give you an example. I was looking over the Guilford County, is it the technical review?
TRC.
The TRC. And it's not uncommon for minor subdivisions to receive waivers for, and excuse me, because I'm not well versed in all this, but the measurements of the frontage of the lot or the width and all that's pretty common. I saw a couple cases where waivers were granted on private roads. So but it didn't make it a major subdivision, if you know what I mean.
Well, if they had a minor subdivision and they asked for a waiver, should have kicked it into a major, and asked for a waiver and they were granted a waiver, then it should have kicked it into a major subdivision. The language is very clear on that.
Yeah, I see it, but when's it ever been done in this town? Because I know some other things that's happened.
What?
When has that ever been done in this town? Somebody get a waiver and it throw them into a major subdivision? I don't know. of
This
any.
is the first case I've ever seen where anyone asked for a waiver on a minor subdivision.
Yeah,
Nah.
I think
Listen
that
to
might
the
be so.
attorney, see what they say, since both of them.
But let Oliver, you're the planner. You speak, you know Guilford County ordinance, and I think Guilford County does zoning for 4 of the small towns in Guilford County. You want to address this?
Yeah, well, with regards to the county, generally they, what the waiver does, generally, a minor subdivision goes before it's approved by staff. And it doesn't have to go before the TRC. The way the county has treated subdivisions that require a waiver that is a minor, but procedurally, they require it to go to the TRC for approval, and then they allow the approval to go through. But typically, they do not require it to go through a rezoning. It retains its AG zoning district. So in application of this definition, the county, it just requires it to go before the technical review committee as a procedural mechanism.
Right.
So, Mr. Bass, you're saying that these waivers happen in Guilford County and it doesn't throw it necessarily in as a major subdivision?
Yes, procedurally wise it does, but in terms of requiring it to be rezoned, it typically doesn't require that once a waiver is passed for an HE zone property.
Okay, thank you.
It's a procedural requirement that they follow.
I'm going to repeat the question Jimmy had. So if I understand you correctly, Oliver, it goes, if a minor subdivision is requesting a waiver, it would go to, what's it called?
TRC.
The TRC. The TRC.
Yeah.
If that waiver is granted by the TRC, does that kick that into a major subdivision?
It's a technicality, but it does for procedural wise, in terms of requiring it to be rezoned to an AG zoning district, it typically does not. That is not a requirement under the county procedure. You know, based on my experience with the county ordinance.
John?
If the waiver is not granted, then it's a moot point.
Right.
The attorney, I think, is going to.
Tom?
If the waiver is not granted, then they have the option to deny or revise it in order to comply with the ordinance.
Tom, you want to speak?
Oliver, let me ask you a question, because you know more about the difference between a minor subdivision and a major subdivision and the procedural requirements. But for a case for the town of Stokesdale, if it starts out as a minor and they request a waiver, it doesn't go before a TRC. Does Stokesdale use TRCs?
On majors, yeah, on some majors, not on waivers.
Okay.
But it goes to the planning board, which is technically the TRC, equivalent to the TRC for the county.
Okay. And so, and then if they ask for the waiver, that has to go before the planning board to grant or deny.
Right.
And on a major subdivision, when that plat has to come through, that too has to go before the planning board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so if it's just a minor subdivision without a waiver or variance, then that's approved by staff only, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the difference without a waiver or variance, and I'm just pointing this out for the council, a minor subdivision never goes before the planning board. And a major subdivision does. You have the planning board being the overseer for it. And if they ask for a waiver or variance, regardless of the definition of major or minor, that's still going to get reviewed by the planning board, which is the same level of review that a major subdivision requires. So, yeah, I wasn't here when this ordinance was written, so I don't know why it's written the way it's written. It seems that Oliver, unless there's some other logical reason that if a minor something starts out as a minor subdivision and they need a waiver or variance, that it changes to major, what else? What other protections, what other reason is there for it changing from minor to major subdivision?
I think the reasoning was, and like you say, it predated me. I don't know the history of it. It was done in the county. I think they adopted it back in the 1990s. And it was a mechanism for them to ensure that those waivers are reviewed by a technical review committee rather than having staff decide it, because it's a fairly discretionary decision, and one staff person is really not able to make that decision. So it has to go before either a TRC or a planning board or a board because of that discretionary nature of that decision.
I still haven't heard of a good reason why this would become a major, just because a minor subdivision gets a waiver.
There's no good reason.
Because he was given special
Who's he?
privileges. Instead of having 4 lots on a private lane, he was allowed to do 7.
Okay,
Now,
you're talking about one specific case here, and I hear you.
Is that okay, Tom, for us to be talking about that case?
Well, it's being used as an example.
Okay, all right.
Only one I've ever heard of, so.
Well, I mean, I know that not certain members of this governing body, but in the last 2 or 3 years have approved several in the town of Stokesdale.
Several minor subdivisions.
Several
With
minor
waivers.
subdivisions with waivers. And we didn't have all this, this nonsense about it. And, look, I believe you gotta run it by the book. I mean, I do believe that. I mean, but I just don't understand why the book says that. It doesn't make sense. Nobody can explain a good reason why a waiver all of a sudden makes a minor subdivision a major.
Then why do all the towns in Guilford County and throughout the state have it in their ordinance? I mean, it must serve some purpose, or there's been thousands and thousands of planning board and town councils and city council meetings. Why hadn't this been struck down before? Now, to me, it's like a waiver. If you allow this, then to me, you're going to change the definition of a minor subdivision and a major subdivision. Let's just say we can do 20 lots in a minor subdivision. Let's just say you can do 20 lots without paving your road. Let's say you can do 20 lots without connecting to city water. Where do you want to stop on your waivers?
Well, I mean, all those examples you gave are the reason we have major subdivisions, and those make sense.
And that's the reason they've got a waiver in there too, to make a distinction between a minor and a major. When you give somebody special privileges.
I don't think it's about special privileges. I think,
You don't think it's a special privilege to allow somebody to go from 4 houses on a private lane to 7? Then what's the difference? Why don't we do it on 20 or 30?
I think it's a benefit for the community of
That's right.
Stokesdale. The landowner is gonna build. He's gonna build there no matter what.
That's right. And has 2 options. He probably has enough road frontage on Hall River that he could have some lots there. He can cut another street in there, another private lane, do the same thing.
I don't know about any of that. I'm just looking at it just as logically as I can. Why would you want to have those 3 driveways coming out to Hall River Road, which I don't know if it's considered a minor thoroughfare or a collector
It
street?
doesn't matter. You can do a minor subdivision on a major thoroughfare.
I thought a waiver was when you did.
Distinctions between
I know,
minor
but
and major.
we're talking about safety here.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's an unsafe situation to have seven duplexes on a private road that it's not wide enough for 2 fire trucks to pass. Now, if a duplex catches on fire in that location, you're about equidistance between Stokesdale and Somerville. You're still in Stokesdale's district, but I'd almost bet you everything I own that both stations are gonna respond.
Sure.
There is no fire hydrant on that road. There's a 2-inch water line that serves a no-T.
There's more houses in Stokesdale that don't have fire hydrants than do.
They've been putting fires out all over in every pig path around Stokesdale for years.
Well, let's go back. If you look at this case, on the other side of the road, the original 4 lots, and I'll just give you a history lesson, and I've got the plats here to show.
Okay.
Connie Hopper used to be Connie Charles. And I think it was 13.2 acres. Let's just say 13 acres. Back, she cut that into a 8.5 acre tract and into 1.75 acre lots. Then they revised that and took those lines down, and they had an 8.5 and a 4.5. Different
Right.
site. Then they went back on that 4 lots, on that 4.5 acre tract and cut 4 lots. And then they still have what they call the parent tract. So the lots on the right-hand side were a major subdivision. I'm not sure how that slid through the crack, but that property that Kevin Cones or whatever his development corporation owns has an address on No-T Drive. So there's 4 lots for duplexes, and then there's an 8.5 remainder track on that. That should have been a major subdivision originally. That road should have been paved.
Yeah, John, I can't hang with you when it comes to ordinances and developments. I mean, obviously, I know you know your stuff. I'm just trying to simplify this down to the most common denominator I can to understand it. And I just don't understand why a waiver for a minor subdivision makes it a major.
You know, I've been a developer.
That's why I'm saying,
For 40
I can't hang with you.
years. And I can take, this is Oak Ridge's development.
Okay.
I've been to Summerfield, Guilford County, Rockingham County, all over this area.
Right.
Every one is a little unique. There are some minor changes. In Rockingham County, you can do 5 lots every 5 years, I think, in a minor subdivision, as long as you're not dedicating a road. But there are things in this ordinance that I don't agree with, and I'm sure there's gray areas that, hey, I used to argue with Les Sagert all the time and said, Les, you know the rules, I know the exceptions. There are a lot of things you could interpret both ways, and a lot of times the county takes the most strict interpretation.
Right.
But if you're gonna do away with the rules and change them, let's just throw out the ordinance.
Well, I mean,
There are a lot of things that you don't like. But rules are rules, and everybody ought to play by the same one. When you applied for a waiver, if you study your ordinance and you know your ordinance, and you've got an engineer that is a hired gun to do that, he should have picked up on that and said, if you ask for a waiver, you could get in a major subdivision. Now, is it more financially advantageous or more practical to get those 3 lots on that private lane? Or are you better off to develop off of Fall River Road? That's a decision the developer makes, not us. All I'm saying is, we've either got to follow the rules or we just throw them away.
So why do we have waivers?
But, well, they asked for a waiver to get, instead of 4 lots on a private lane, they asked for 3 additional ones. You could ask for a waiver based on the length of a private lane, and I can't remember, it's either 600 feet or 800 feet.
It went up because it got changed some years ago. I don't know what it is, but
I think it's 800,
It's
but
longer than it used
I
to
don't
be.
know that for sure.
That's the fire distance between the 2 hydrants was.
okay, is Mr. Bass saying in Guilford County that they approve waivers like this without rezoning property?
Mr. Bass is the head of the planning department. I had a conversation with him and explained the situation because Oliver thought he had the privilege or the right to sign off on the plat. Explained the situation, and they both were under the understanding that the planning board, one, granted a waiver, and two, that they voted to approve the site plan. If they'd done that, you know, this would be a moot issue.
Well, can they vote to approve the site plan?
Well, if they, you know, they can do anything, it wouldn't have, you know, it would have been against our ordinance. They should have informed them at the time they had the case. Okay, you understand, if we grant this waiver, you lose your zoning, you're not gonna be able to do a duplex because it's not a permitted use in RS 30 or RS 40. And that's the opportunity cost you get or have for doing the waiver. And that's a conscious decision. Well, which is more important to me, which makes me more money? I don't know.
Mr. Bass just said a second ago that that was not the case about having to rezone the property. And,
Well, where he's saying you gotta rezone the property to RS 30 or 40.
and all your waivers.
No, he didn't say that.
All your waivers, no, he didn't say that. All your waivers are going against zoning. That's what a waiver is. I mean, against your zoning ordinance.
But once you ask for that waiver and you're granted that waiver, it kicks it from a minor to a major.
In other words,
I would like to see it done.
I do understand that the strict literal reading of that, you know, I do understand that it says that. I just don't understand why, except maybe that's what it said when we hit copy and paste from Summerfield.
Oh, no, we were City for Summerfield.
We were, but a lot of our ordinances still say Summerfield.
Why can't I come back in as a property owner and say, hey, listen, this is a gray area, but I don't understand why I can't do 10 lots in a minor subdivision. There's no reason I can't. If you granted special permission for this, give me a waiver on that.
You're making a good point about consistency. I do see what you're saying. But again, waivers have, there's a process to follow when granting waivers.
That's exactly right, and there's a cost when you get that waiver. The thing you've got to be really concerned with, Derek, and the board, if an attorney is an appeal in a case and goes to court, 2 words they use, arbitrary and capricious.
Right.
And that means you're treated different than me. And so if you start, well, I don't agree with that law, so I don't care, we'll just disallow that. That's when you get in trouble.
Well, that's what we've done in the
Disallow that,
past.
huh?
So
We've done in the past. We have granted these, I guess that's what I'm saying. Are you saying that we've set precedent for an attorney now because this hasn't been looked at in the past?
We make mistakes, believe me, we just corrected one tonight.
Right.
Somebody made a mistake about 5 years ago when they gave the 5 lots on the OT and didn't call it a major subdivision then. Things happen, you know, we've got a planner who is not as familiar with Stokesdale as some of us. You know, he's maybe doing more than one town, I don't know. But I'm just telling you.
But I'm familiar enough with Stokesdale, nowhere like you are, but I mean, doesn't this hurt kind of the little guy? Mm-hmm. Like the definition of this definition, I mean.
Doesn't hurt me at all.
What do you mean? I mean, I'm talking about the
Developer?
Well, I'm not talking about a developer. I'm talking.
It's a private, what you generally gonna get.
Let's use the Gonzalez's for an example tonight. Well, wouldn't something like this hurt them if they wanted to? I don't even know all the things you can request to waive. Again, the TRC requests to waive a lot of the dimensions of a lot, and you know. So what if we had a property owner that wanted to do that and said, okay, you can get the waiver, but now you got a major subdivision and you've got all
we
this.
granted a waiver variance, I can't remember, for Chris Southern down on Southern Road. He was trying to build a garage behind his property, and I think he wanted to go, instead of 15-foot backyard, 10-yard, 10-foot. His dad owned the property behind it, and there were some big oak trees and things like that. That doesn't hurt anybody. That's just a minor variance. That's a variance instead of a waiver.
Okay.
You're still going against the ordinance. Waiver or variance, either one. I mean. That's what it
And it's
is.
a legal way
And
to
you're
do that.
making, and you're making a judgment. That's why, I mean,
But-
why
but
don't we
he-
just
but-
have a
but-
machine?
But Chris's property was part of a major subdivision, there's 50 homes down
Yeah,
there.
well, I'm just
And it was
saying, we
probably
just-
zoned RS20, RS30, that was done 50, 60 years ago.
If we can't make judgments on things, we might as well just have a
Well,
computer or something up here.
what, do you want to just say, okay, our zoning now becomes a situational thing. Depends on who it is, whether they want to make money or whether they want to abide by a rule or if they need special provisions. Hey, we'll just consider anything. So don't really take this the way it's written. Just take it for your interpretation. And that's exactly what you're doing to me.
So what are you doing with a waiver then?
Didn't you say you do
John,
that all
you're
the time?
saying,
The planning board granted a waiver.
I understand.
If the planning board had known that in the definition of a major subdivision, they should have told them that if you get this waiver, you're going to go to a major subdivision that's going to require an RS or RS40 zoning or 30, and that you're going to lose, if you want to build duplexes, you're going to lose that right. Somebody should have told them, but quite honestly, it's not our planner, it's not our responsibility to explain the ordinances. That's something that's in writing for everybody to understand and review and know before you come in.
Right, but when an ordinance doesn't make sense, I think it's good to have a discussion of it. And it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm just one person, but I mean,
All I can say is standard language for developments in, for cities and municipalities. There was a reason for it, believe me.
but nobody can give us a reason. Oliver Bass can't give us a reason. You can't give us a reason from
I'm
40
not an
years.
attorney, I didn't go to.
No, I know, but I'm saying you have the 40 years of developmental experience, and that's worth something. I mean, that's a lot of knowledge. And, you know,
we need to discuss it, and we need to somewhere down the line have somebody that, you know, that can really tell us what's
Well,
going on with that.
I mean, I would like for the planning board to act as an advisory committee here and look at it and see, you know, further look into it and look and make a
Well, that'd be
recommendation.
fine.
One of the
send that
things
down
we're
to
gonna
them.
talk about in just a few minutes, 160A and 160D development.
Right,
One's been rescinded and one comes effective July 1st. Tom Medlin's gonna discuss that a little bit. Again, Town of Oak Ridge spent a fortune on this. They revised theirs. I talked to Leslie, I think it was Leslie Hall, Oliver's boss. He said when he came on board, and I forgot what year it was, he said we went through every town that we do, the 4 towns. And he said, we went through the ordinance page by page and we made recommendations. Here's things we think you should change and, you know, whether the town votes on them or not. It's sort of like the situation we got up on, Coldwater, Happy Hill. Gilbert County changed their ordinance that you can dedicate a road without rezoning. But we haven't made that change to our ordinance. So we're having the big hullabaloo about Duke Power owns the land and they've got to get permission. We can't have third-party zoning. And so Guilford County's ordinance, they've made some changes. We haven't followed suit. We really need to update our ordinance.
I think we need to update this one for sure.
We need to
Well, I
have
think
some,
we ought, I
you
think
know,
I think we really should talk to maybe people at the League of Government and ask them why. I'd talk to some real estate attorneys and say, you know, what's your thoughts on this? But I can assure you, and you take my word, whether you want to or not, I can pull ordinances that have the exact same language. It's not, I hate to see us go rogue. And our ordinance is completely different than anybody else's. That's my point.
Well, this definition isn't in all ordinances for a major subdivision.
I bet you it is. I bet you've seen most of them.
It's not in Guilford County.
Where the Oliver M it is.
I want to ask one question that we need to think about, and regardless of how, what, when, who, and where. Do we grant it every third one and not the next 2? Do we, because you build. You can't build, you know, certain ways. You've got roads, you've got, you know, sewer if you have a sewer put in underground, you've got the other. So who are we gonna say yes to and who are we gonna say no to? Because when you set one precedent, you are obligated to be able, regardless of what it is, you're obligated to be able to have a working reason why all the people thereafter, doesn't matter again who it is, what it is, you gotta be able to explain why they can't have the same thing.
Well, that's,
Because that is something that will kill a town in a minute.
So every waiver that's been granted prior to this, everybody in the town can just do that. I mean, I can go put a garage 10 feet, the one I mean, every waiver, every example that's been granted prior to this point, in your argument, that means I can go do it.
That was variance.
The next time somebody, if we change it like that, how do we say no to people? What's the basis of saying yes or no? I mean, where's the criteria? Where are your regulations? Hang on. Let me just ask him, finish the sentence, and I'll talk to you. As far as that goes, if you have this situation and you change it, anybody after that, what are they gonna base it on? The law, an ordinance is a law. We make law. If that's the case, how do we?
I'm not suggesting you change it. I'm just suggesting that.
Well, if you do a waiver on it, everybody's gonna want a waiver.
I mean, the purpose of a variance or a waiver is to handle items by exception.
Okay?
That's the entire
What
reason.
are the legal exceptions on this one then? And I'm not challenging you. For me, I'm just saying, where do you start and stop?
I mean, the very definition of variance and waivers is a subjective thing. I mean, there's no way it's not. I mean.
Well, you can
because-
only ask about, what, a half a dozen or so waiver objects, I'll say, that are in there.
The ordinance and the book of law or zoning development, whatever.
Yeah.
That's for 99% of the time, right?
Right.
And as we know in life, it just doesn't work that way. There is some gray area. There's just no silver bullet language written in a textbook anywhere that handles every situation that comes up in a town.
Exactly.
And that's the very reason a variance and or a waiver was created. And so, just to someone else's point earlier, I mean, why the heck do we even have a variance or a waiver if we can't use them?
Well, it's not that you
used
can't,
it.
you can't,
He
it's
used
not that you can't use them. It's that you have to think about, I'll get you in a second. I don't want your hand to go to sleep. It's not that, but what are we doing that we're not trying to pick up where we were and run with it in this particular case? Why was it, if it was 5, it was a major already. If it's a dirt road, it was never paved, so it's not a major already. So that's what I'm saying. Where do you, it's different looking from this chair.
For better performance.
Sir?
The waiver was for equal or better performance and safety.
Well, looking at,
Anybody that's got any common sense can go down there and see that one outlet is better than 4 outlets, all gram packed together.
I went all the way,
John, will you recognize the guy in the back? He had his hand up.
To what?
Would you recognize, I can't see who he is because I'm about blind.
Bill Greco.
Okay. He had his hand up nicely there, so
that's why I asked him, don't let it go to sleep.
it will.
Bill Greco with Land Solutions. Our office is located at 200 South Regional Road in Greensboro. I appreciate being recognized. I want to start very high and maybe get down just a little faster, a little quicker, not only on this topic, but on the next. This discussion tonight, I appreciate you guys having it. It's great. Text amendments to an ordinance. Mr. Bass or Mr. Medlin can correct me if I'm wrong, but anybody can suggest a text amendment. I have done that. I have submitted the existing text. I have submitted the proposed text. I have done that in more than one municipality, city, town in the state. So I have made my application and paid my fee. Now, there's a process behind that. We're going to go to the planning board, and I'm going to have my opportunity there. They're going to certainly do their job and have a robust discussion, and then I'll be back before this council. As with many decisions, council can laugh me out of the room, council can approve it, or council may do something somewhere there in between. We've dug a little deep into this one tonight on some details, but a few things are important, I think, to recognize and just put all cards on the table. The particular case we keep going back to doesn't really drive the whole ship here. Any ordinance can have a conflict. Chapter 7 says one thing, Chapter 5 says another. When you have a large staff and a lot of end users, your best input comes from your end users, people who have stumbled over something. Staff, Oliver can speak to that. When the 3, 4, 5 planners at Guilford County hit the same thing 6 times in a year, they put that on a list. We're going to change that one day. So what we have here is a very odd application of something. Oliver summed it up perfectly. The reason that's been in there from Guilford County, and I'll throw my age and everything out. I've been doing this in this county since '93, before Stokesdale, Summerfield, Oak Ridge came online. Oliver nailed it. Guilford County had that in there because they wanted waiver requests to be heard by TRC, not by an individual planner in granting a waiver, because you do have to make a point to meet one of those 4 criteria. That's how they wrote it. They understood when they wrote it how they were going to apply it. That's how they've always applied it. What's happened in Stokesdale, and I will certainly present all of this again, and I will go back to arbitrary and capricious, the words that Mr. Flint has used, and setting a precedent for Mr. Hooks. I'm going to show you plats that are recorded in this town that he was the mayor and Oliver Bass was the planner, and they're the exact same thing that we're dealing with at No Tees. Nobody ever threw those projects under the bus and said, whoa, 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 wait a minute, you have to rezone. I'm going to show you 2 for certain. I can probably pull up more, but I think 2 proves the point that if precedent is something that's dangerous and problematic, you now have a problem, because I got 2 that have already been done this way. So why are you singling out No Tees Lane and this one project? Because that's what you're doing, and that's arbitrary and capricious. So the ordinance, the text amendment, again, to circle back to the big picture, I've made the application. I've provided the text. If Mr. Bass or Mr. Medlin or the planning board or the council wants to modify that text or change it or throw it out or tell me thank you at the end of both of those public hearings, that's certainly their choice. But it's here before us for this amendment. I do think there's some very good reasons why the variance piece should be struck. I think we're getting down rabbit holes on conversations. You can ask for a waiver in a major subdivision or in a minor subdivision. I just asked for 2 in the past year, 1 in a major subdivision for the length of a road and 1 at No Tees for access. By and large, most of these are asked for by what I consider and what we've discussed tonight as the little guy. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, they're trying to give a son, a daughter, a nephew a lot deeded off, and a flag lot, for example, must be less than 300 feet long, but they need 310 feet. That's generally where these waivers and variances come into play. When you do a big major subdivision, it's pretty rare, designed by the book. It's a major subdivision. But when something has never, in the history of Stokesdale, been applied the way it's been applied to No Tees Lane, we've got a problem. And that problem's not just for No Tees, but for all those that come behind No Tees. For everybody that has a waiver request and doesn't have a major subdivision in front of them. That's what we need to address here in Stokesdale for our citizens, for our landowners, provide some clarity to Mr. Bass. And it's really very, very straightforward. Like I said, it's been twisted and turned and mangled up a lot of language tonight, but it's very straightforward. And other than Mr. Bass and myself, with regard to that one line, that one phrase that I suggest we strike from the ordinance, nobody can provide a reason why that's a good idea. Guilford County, in the process of doing their new UDO, has changed the definition of a minor subdivision from 4 lots to 5. Ordinances evolve over time. This is just good housekeeping. This is just something that, in my opinion, the town of Stokesdale and the council, as good stewards looking out for the citizens and the landowners and everybody else, housekeeping is necessary sometimes, and this is one of those exercises. So I won't belabor this point anymore, other than to reemphasize, I've paid, I've made application, I've provided the text, and we'll be back to revisit this piece in the future. I am thankful that we've had this discussion tonight. You know it's coming. It's coming from me. I'm a hired gun. I've got clients out there.
I respect that, Bill.
I've got clients. My clients, however, are landowners and Stokesdale citizens and property owners here, trying to do the right thing by the ordinance, and whether they make money or save money, none of that matters. The ordinance is there to just provide a framework for the safe, orderly development of the town. So that's where we're at. And I would want to speak on the next amendment as well. It will highlight very significant issues, I think, that the town needs to be aware of, furthering the whole point of a text amendment and why they're necessary from time to
So
time.
let's finish this discussion, and then I think Mr. Rigsby put that on the agenda.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on the definition of a major subdivision?
I'm done for now. We'll revisit it sometime, probably when they come up.
Okay. Discuss and reevaluate the RS-30 policy.
So, yes, we, back, I believe it was September 10th, we changed the RS-30 policy after a proper public hearing and such to require all RS-30 developments moving forward to have to hook onto the water system. I don't think we had any opposition for that, and nor on council did we have any disagreement that our long-term plan, that is a move in the right direction. What we did not discuss, I don't remember discussing it, was how we were going to handle subdivisions and such that had been approved previously and have not been developed yet. And, you know, we can talk about some that were approved just a few months before that and are in the planning stages. And we can also talk about things like Dawn Acres, where I live at, that was originally done in 2014 or 15, and they're just now putting houses on some of those lots. So if we weren't hooked onto the water system, that would apply here as well, because then they would have been approved under the old ordinance. And that's just a hypothetical situation, that there's going to be existing subdivisions out there that take long periods of time to develop. And I think we need to, as a council, readdress or add some language to this amendment to allow for the ones that were approved previously to us making this a change to be grandfathered and proceed as they were originally approved. So,
Can I just speak to that a little bit?
yes.
Generally, somebody gets a rezoning, the zoning stays in place. Maybe a year, maybe 5 years before they actually do the development. But what generally happens is they have to go by the rules at the time they make the application and go in with the subdivision. Problem you're gonna have, back 31 years ago, when the town of Stokesdale incorporated, we took the zoning of Guilford County, and I don't remember when Guilford County did zoning, let's say somewhere in the 60s. There's a lot of property in Stokesdale that's zoned RS-40. Now, if you use that same logic, none of those properties, if they're on the water line, right, on 68, they
Right.
wouldn't have to tie on the city water because that was adopted after their zoning came into place 30 years ago or 50 years ago. So it makes sense that they abide by the rules that are there in place. We could change the, for example, Summerfeld, I think they're RS-40, their minimum lot size now is RS-60. So if somebody has an RS-40 zoning, they're gonna have to come by the current standards RS-60. So you're gonna have to almost be a historian to know when a property was zoned, what the rules were at that time. And I'll guarantee you, you go down Guilford County and say, what were the rules in 1960 when you incorporated zoning? Ain't nobody in the world gonna know. And I doubt anybody knows what they were exactly for the town of Stokesdale. And that's the problem you got. I mean, it's a moving target. And I sympathize with the situation. That one was just a month or two
Right.
prior. But you can't just say, well, anything that's done in the last 3 months, because that wouldn't be fair to somebody who had RS-40 zoning 20 years or 40 years ago. That's my dilemma on it, and that's my situation. I think you keep the zoning,
it stays with that property until that property owner changes his mind. But you got to go by the current rules that are applicable at the time you make your subdivision or your site plan or whatever.
This,
You-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Any development in this district will be required to connect to the Stokesdale water system. That, I didn't think anything about that. It's kind of like one of those puzzles where you're looking for the X. Now it jumps out at me. Bill or somebody sent an email, and it jumps out.
That's the whole purpose.
Well, yeah, but it's required. I mean, so who is making the decision? That could mean that they're required right now.
I think all 5 of us voted for that.
Now, I didn't mean to. I might have, but I would back up on that one in a minute.
Record, it was either 4 to 1 or 5.
It was 5.
No. I'm saying, you know, that's one of those that if I did vote for it. I was for the RS-30 with the water. I had no intentions of making somebody hook up that's already got wells and things like that. There's no difference.
Hey, no, anybody, unless you're doing a subdivision and you're within those distances, 1,000 feet or whatever, on an RS-40, you can go with your well. But if you're within those, let's say 1,000 feet for 50-lot subdivision, whatever they are, then you have to have city water. Now, RS-30, the reason we changed that, those lots are typically 100 by 300. And you've got to have separation between your well and your septic tank. And I think in Guilford County, that's 150 feet. So you're basically limiting yourself on those. You either got to have all the wells on the front of the lot and all the septics on the back to meet that requirement. And it's tough to do because sometimes you may have slopes, sometimes you may have good soil in the front and bad soil in the back. And so you can't have a well here and a well there and septics here. You got to have that separation. Everybody was in agreement that we're trying to eliminate any long-term issues on wells going dry and on septic failures. They're happening. We took out the provision has to be with the municipal water supply. We eliminated community wells. And the reason we've done that, almost every week we get calls from somebody in a development with community water. And they're complaining about the quality of the water, the volume of the water, the pressure of the water and everything else. One day we may have a big issue that somebody's going to have to face with some of these community well systems failing.
I understand what you're saying, and those were good issues. I mean, we discussed it in Ordinance Review Committee. You was there. We discussed it on council. I don't know, I think Planning Board did.
Planning Board, we had
But
public hearings
the
on
only
this.
thing here we got another definition. What is the definition of development? A development, development
Major
means you're
subdivision
developing.
over 5 lots where you got a road and water sewer dedication.
But what I'm saying, it's not saying, that's saying a development. So all these developments we've got, they're developments. So it depends on, if we don't clarify that part at least, one of these days you're gonna have somebody come in here and say, oh, it says development, we gotta hook up to the water.
Well, Derek lives in Angels Glen. His house is built. He's got city water. I
Yeah,
assume,
we're
but
we're not RS-30 though. We're
whatever.
P, I don't know. We're not RS-30.
So he's grandfathered in. There's something called vested rights, and I believe when you record the subdivision, Bill, you help me on this. When does vested rights, isn't that recording? Or approval? Yeah. So once that plan's approved, the laws are in effect right then. That's all he'll ever have to do.
So if the plan's approved,
We can't change it. We can't change the rules.
okay, well, that's what I'm saying, if the
We
plan's
can't
approved.
tell Derek, hey, you gotta cook the city water.
Well,
And if he's got a well
I mean,
there, we
yeah,
can't
you
say.
can, they do it all over the country. These towns do it all over, they charge people by the foot coming through for septic and do everything.
We don't have mandatory connection.
I know we
That's a
don't.
big thing. Now, if we require mandatory connection, everybody along 68 and 158, the water goes by their house would have been required to do it. We could change that, I guess.
I hope if
but-
we do that, they tar and feather us and run us out of town.
Exactly right.
You
So
know,
if you want to be tarred and feathered, vote for
well,
it.
I won't be voting for it, but,
Put it in that and the tax together and they'll shoot you.
yeah, well, they should.
Musket ball they found in the back.
Can we recognize Mr. Greco?
Sure.
Bill Greco, 200 South Regional Road. Again, on this item here, I'm gonna start by saying, all of us make mistakes. Every day when I get up in the morning, I strive not to, but we all make mistakes. This hearing's gonna be, this discussion's gonna really highlight, and just shine a spotlight on why this needs to be changed. In the previous agenda item, we were reading specific to the law, and if a developer didn't read it, he should have. And if his hired gun didn't know it, he should have, and that's what it said. What this body passed, good intentions don't count. What you meant to say doesn't count. What you passed says any development in this district will be required to connect to the Stokesdale water service system. That's the exact words. So, again, precedent, lawsuits, arbitrary and capricious. You tell me, when's Huntcliffe got to hook up? They're RS-30. When's Weatherstone got to hook up? They're RS-30. Where's everybody up and down?
They got community well.
Where's
But the
not all
law,
of them.
the
It
law.
doesn't, John, it doesn't say there's an exception for a community well. I'm gonna read it again. Any development will be required. So that's what I'm gonna use against the town as a hired gun. And then I'm gonna dig a little deeper. What is a development? Stokesdale's ordinance, development, any man-made change to improved or unimproved real estate, including but not limited to buildings or other structures, mining, dredging, filling, grading, paving, excavation, or drilling operations or storage of materials. So every time you think development, you exchange that. So that means any man-made change to a building. You build a shed behind your house, that's a man-made change to a building. You do an addition, you're in RS-30, you will be required, because I will be watching. And since this passed, Mr. Bass and the staff at Guilford County should have been telling people, oh, you want to do an addition? According to the ordinance, you are required to connect. It doesn't say you get a pass if you've got community water. It doesn't talk about vesting. It gives you nothing. Grandma's well goes dry and she needs a new one, and she's in RS-30. Sorry, ma'am, you will be required to connect to the Stokesdale water system. So we've just made a mistake. That's not what we meant to say. But we've also opened up this new era in Stokesdale where we're reading things down to that level of specificity, and if that's the game we need to play, we are going to have to play it across the board and apply it equally to everybody. So if you want to pave your driveway, Mr. Foy, if it's not paved, I'm sure it is, if you want to pave your driveway, you will be required to connect to the water system, no matter if it's 6 miles away and it costs you $10 million. The answer is, as a homeowner, you should have known, you should have read the ordinance. That's what we just discussed in the previous case. So this one, again, should be a softball for all of us. The language needs clarified. It needs to accurately reflect the intent of council, what's good for the town, and how we apply this thing. So development was just quite simply the wrong choice of words. With my proposed text amendment, I've suggested a way around that says anybody that comes in the door and applies for a rezoning to RS-30 will be required to connect. That's what I've suggested in that text amendment. And I went further into Chapter 5 and said also, let's put a little note here in Chapter 5. I'm real bad about jumping through chapters in the book, so when you jump to Chapter 5 and it talks about what's required to connect to the water system, we need a big bold sentence right there that says RS-30, you will be required. This chart does not apply to you. There's a chart that says X number of houses and X number of feet away. So there's two parts about this that I've suggested that text amendment to, and similar to the previous text amendment, this will go through the same process, hopefully at the same time. And if there's anything you guys would like to add as a council or participate in this, we'll be at the planning board at their next regular scheduled meeting. So there'll be an opportunity to add. If there's something in here I've missed, again, back to where I started, we all make mistakes. So if I miss something about this that we need clarity on, let's all get on board and make this change. Because when we talk about, and the word rarely comes out of my mouth, rarely. When we talk about lawsuits, when we talk about setting the town up for a problem, you got one right here. This is a problem that we just simply need to solve. It's not a big problem. It's just tweaking some language. Done. And I appreciate, again, this being on the agenda tonight, and I look forward to more discussion, but certainly let's all participate in this one and make sure we get this one right.
Bill, one of the things we need to do, we need to rewrite our ordinance. You are just as familiar with this as I am, but there's provisions in there with RS5 zoning, 5,000 square foot lots with sewer. We don't have sewer. Take it out. Guilford County allows you to do 22 units an acre or 25 or whatever the number they are. They're in our ordinance. We shouldn't have that. It was a simple, cheap, quick, administrative thing to adopt Guilford counties. And you do it on a case-by-case basis based on the most current law. Now, we update our ordinance book, and so the table on the distance and the number of lots, that information is here.
But
And I don't
John,
disagree, but-
earlier you were saying if you change the ordinance, you might as well just throw the ordinance out. I mean, that's what you said.
Towns change ordinances all the time.
I know. But I'm just going by what you said earlier. You were like, if we're gonna change the ordinance, we might as well just throw the ordinance out.
If you start taking things out like the waivers, but if you could change your zoning, let's say we wanted to say a minimum lot size in town of Stokesdale was 60,000 square feet, like Summerfield. Take out RS30, RS40, RS20, RS5, RS8, and all the others, and just put the minimum lot size in the town of Stokesdale is RS60. I mean, 60,000 square foot.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying right now, because, I mean, that makes sense. You look at our ordinance book, and you've got all these zonings that we don't even have, but they're in the book.
Yeah, so I think the challenge to the town,
Yeah.
we need to do that. But that's not gonna be a cheap fix. That may cost you $25,000 or $50,000 to update your ordinance book. But that's the only way you're gonna get it contemporaneous. I'm all for that. I think that's something we need. I think I've been lobbying for a town planner for several years. I'd love to see that. I think we need a full-time planner.
Hey,
John, how do I get it?
The glaring issue with both of these text amendments that I've put forth is equal and consistent application across the board. With the piece with the waivers and declaring it to be a minor or a major and having to be rezoned, that certainly has never been applied that way. Whether or not it was targeted at a specific project or it just so happened that staff and the mayor on that given day were flipping through that chapter, I don't know. And the same applies to this water piece. We can't use a crystal ball as citizens and end users of this document and go, well, that's not really what they meant, so that's okay, but this is not. So it's getting clarity and consistency to it. And again, I
Bill,
look
none
forward
of us are
to the public
attorneys.
hearings.
That's the reason we need to have an attorney to give us exactly the language we vote on in our ordinance.
Somebody was trying to get in.
Hey, John, this is Steve Louie. I'm trying to get in.
Okay, Steve.
I had a real problem earlier, computer problem. But I'd just like to make a statement there along with Mr. Greco. Your RS30 amendment to require connection to the water system is not a mistake. All well water in Stokesdale comes from the regolith. You know, it's a fancy word for the soil above bedrock. And that word was used by the USGS. The USGS did a study on the recharge rates in Guilford County. I've furnished copies and sources to town council previously. You guys have got that. They figure, that study has figured 400 gallons per day per house as an example of the recharge rates. The total minimum land use or land area to recharge in this area is about 1.05 acres or 45,697 square feet. Building on a RS30 lot of 30,000 square feet is 30%, 36% overuse unless it's connected to a town water system. So one other point I'd like to make about differences between a major and minor subdivision is that the site plan of a major subdivision has to be approved by the town planning board. Minor subdivision site plans don't. All right, that's all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
this is Jimmy Landers. Are you advocating to make people hook up that are in RS-30 developments now? That
No,
already have
that-
water?
If they already have a building done, no, they are not a development. They are an existing building.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about, is the definitions. There's two different definitions for that.
Well,
And I think that at least needs to be addressed,
all right.
because I don't want to be run out of Stokesdale. I've been here too long.
I took it, you guys ought to take a look at the town zoning map. That's the official town zoning map, and that is what determines what is zoned. And according to the town zoning map that's in the building that you're in, there's not a whole lot of RS-30 large areas. There might be a 1 or 2 acre or 3 couple acres of land, but there's no large areas. Nothing that would, I think, hit a major subdivision.
That's, Steve, I'd correct you a little bit. Most of the developments we've been doing the last 3 or 4 years of RS-30.
Well, when you say developments, RS-30,
Subdivisions.
Okay, I don't have any information in front of me, so I'll let that go.
Come into town council tomorrow. We got maps. We can show you that the last 10 have been approved or 15, and you can look at the zoning.
Okay, well then
Some of
the
them are
zoning,
PUD that are 20,000 square foot lots, but they have a density.
the zoning map then, John, is out of date.
It is. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Anyone
All right.
else? Next item on the agenda, discuss and vote on Randy Braswell's planning board application.
Yeah, I added this. Randy Braswell turned in his planning board application. I think, traits I look at, for a planning board member, obviously any kind of experience you have is a benefit. And familiarity with our zoning and our ordinances. I think Randy will be well prepared and getting ahead of a meeting, and a strong stewardship to others. Earlier in the evening, property rights were mentioned that Randy's a big proponent of, and I think that's an important trait of a planning board member. So we can have discussion. I'll start it out with making a motion to appoint Randy Braswell as an alternate to the planning board.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
Whose place is he taking?
Alternate.
Huh?
Terry
he's not taking
Hedenskog
it. He's not-
resigned, so that would be an opening if you wanted to go 1 for 1.
Randy will need to do is get his training, get him set up for his training. And, he's probably more qualified, he's as qualified as anybody to be on there. But we don't, we don't want to ruffle feathers. So you ain't got a problem with that, do you, Randy, doing your training? He probably could write it down.
What's our alternate number now?
We're down to 3.
Is it 3? Yeah.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Darren?
No.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
No. Next item, discuss and vote on estimate from Galton Plumbing.
This is one of the sensors on the toilet, $430, 29.03 tax. The toilet wasn't working. He went in and did some repairs on it. Now it is working, but it's not working with the sensor. We're probably going to have some sensors start going out, because it's, how old's that part? 10 years? Is it 10 years?
I have no idea.
Well, it's getting old, so you can push the buttons. So the question is, you want to replace this sensor, or do you want to push the buttons? I say we replace the sensor. I'll make a motion to replace the sensor.
Hey, Jimmy, one question for him. Has anybody looked at the battery in the sensor?
There's not a battery in the sensor for the commodes. Yeah, Corey's been out here from Golden Plumbing and he had to tear it apart because the washers and everything had gotten, where it hadn't been flushed in a long time, it had gotten old, so he did get it flushed, but, we had the problem with the sinks and they had batteries. And, one of the past councilmen let me know what was going on with it, and we got it taken care of.
Okay, so
It's run off electricity. Is that right, Tim Jones? Where's Tim at?
He just
Is
left.
that right, Randy Braswell? The commodes are run off electricity? They're a 24-volt transformer. Okay, but it's not a battery? No, they're not batteries. Okay. So I make a motion, we do it. If you don't want to, that's fine. You can push the button, but, you know, it'd be better.
What kind of cost are you talking about?
Huh? $459.03.
For all of them or just one?
Just one. That's what I'm saying. We'll probably start having issues with it, you know, down the line. So we're gonna need to plan accordingly. At least put, you know, a couple,
Okay.
you know, back, so.
Have a motion, do we get us,
That sensor's $300. That's $300 to buy. So that's a reason. Yeah, I knew it was expensive. Does that sound fair, Bill?
There's already been one or two that have been replaced since I came here in the last 4 years, so maybe.
Well, that's, okay, that's good, So, I got a motion, get a second?
Jim Rigsby, second.
any discussion, call a question? Darren?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Derek? Aye. Jim?
Aye.
Aye. Vote on revision to agenda policy, I believe that was, Alicia's,
Remind me to call him.
response to
I
somebody.
forget.
Hey, can I just ask a question, just for my own clarity? Mr. Greco said earlier that you were proposing a text amendment to this ordinance. Does that mean you're sending it up through the planning board?
I have submitted it to staff and paid the fee to staff, and my understanding is staff should be moving that through proper channels, starting out soon with Mr. Bass and then maybe the fee to the planning board.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood what you said. Thank you.
Okay, my changes that I'm requesting to our policy regarding adding agenda items during a meeting is kind of along this same lines of getting some wording correctly, because there were some questions that arose in the past meeting about the fact that the current one we have specifically, or just specifies town council. It's just, I guess, because it's just kind of always been an understanding that whatever rules and procedures the town council follows, the planning board was expected to follow as well. But to clarify it, you have a copy of the current policy, and then you have a copy of what I propose to change to broaden it, and that's simply striking town council board meetings each month and typing in board meetings each month. And basically, the policy would read, agenda items should be received by staff no later than 2 p.m. the Friday prior to the regular board meetings each month. That gives staff time to prepare the supporting documents for the board packets and to send these out in an email to council, the planning board, and the town attorney, as well as the sunshine list and news media by Monday of the week of the meeting. Any agenda item may be added during a meeting before the agenda is approved, but this added agenda item will be for discussion only. There will be no vote taken on this agenda item unless the item is time sensitive. This policy is intended to protect the fairness and the transparency of the council and its agenda, and allow council and the public ample time to adequately prepare for items that are presented during the council meeting.
Anybody want to put that on the floor for,
I make a motion, we approve the change to that definition and policy.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. The part, there will be no vote taken on the agenda item unless it's time sensitive. Who decides time sensitive to who? And,
2 o'clock
What-
Friday.
The
no,
council,
no, it says here, there will be no vote taken on the agenda item unless the item is time sensitive. Who decides what is time sensitive?
The
And
council.
what about the 48-hour notice if you're gonna vote? I mean, don't you have to have something on the agenda to take a vote?
What that is describing is, okay, we have a hurricane again and we have a tree go down on the building. We got a hole in the roof and you come in here and we were already having a town council meeting, so we threw this on there to take care of it tonight so that we can get somebody to tarp the roof. It's time sensitive means that it's something that urgent has come up as we're getting ready to have a town council meeting and, you know, or it's something that we've got to meet a deadline that was not heard on a prior meeting. And I would assume that you as a council could determine that same night whether it's time sensitive enough to vote on that night or could wait till the next town council meeting.
If we're not doing an emergency meeting, which you could call it emergency, because you can do it in 2 hours,
Right.
okay? I mean, you don't have a 48-hour notice, so you don't have an emergency meeting. I mean, maybe,
Basically, it would be for something that someone has come up and found out that we have a deadline on it. But, I mean, you can take time sensitive out. We can just say, you don't add anything for a vote on the same night as the meeting.
yeah, I just don't, I mean, if we voted even if you vote 5-0 on the council, you're still skating the rules, the emergency rules or
I'm just,
whatever.
I mean, that was already in here. I didn't put that in as an additional information. That was already here. All I basically did was change it from town council to
I
board
understand.
meetings.
I understand.
That's all I
We
changed.
just keep having problems because of the wording of things.
Okay,
and-
well, tell me
and,
what you want it to
Well,
say and
what does everybody
I'll
else
fix it.
think? It's not what I think. I mean, that's what I think right there, but what's everybody else think?
When we had the washout down on the highway down there. when
That'd be an emergency meeting, Karen.
Right, that was considered an emergency meeting, period. That if you're thinking about coming up with a time-sensitive thing, I think you'll have to define the differential between urgent, emergent, and just time-sensitive before it goes up 50% or something.
Well,
That
I believe it's time sensitive if you call it emergency meeting. I mean, that's what the ordinance is in for. It's for that reason.
But you were asking what constitutes. I could see if we had to be brought in because effective June the 1st, the price on that item for the town would double.
Well,
This is-
that's fine. We can
this
do an
is May
emergency meeting.
the-
I just don't want one person, unless we give them a vote. If we vote for somebody to do that, that's fine. But, you know,
I
I
think we're
just
talking about
don't-
having all of us together, seeing what the deal is.
Well, I
And
understand,
then making a
but-
decision.
you gotta.
Tom, are you still there?
Yep.
An emergency meeting or a special call meeting are for a very specific purpose. They're not laden down with a number of items on the agenda. Do you think it's language where it says, give no vote taken on an agenda item, subject to time, being time sensitive is clear under that?
Well,
You got any suggestions?
a special call meeting, an emergency meeting, you're right. You can only take up the issue that is in the notice that's given. You can't take up any other issues in meetings.
Right.
So, you know, one of the problems for the town clerk is they're going to give a notice of a meeting and it's a regular meeting, is what we're talking about here, not special or emergency. And just putting together the agenda. I think if the council agrees to take a vote, they can take a vote, but you're just trying to set a policy so that everybody knows that something doesn't get added at the last minute without a vote, if it's not gonna have enough time for everybody to really review it and understand it and that kind of thing. I think that's the issue you're trying to address. You know, this has been in the policy and, you everybody's been able to abide by it. Now, if you think it's creating a problem as far as time sensitive, you can address it or change it. But if not, then, you've been able to abide by it so far.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion
So what, to approve this?
to approve it?
I'm not gonna vote for it with the time sensitive in it. So, I mean, y'all could, if y'all think it's okay, that's fine. I'm just one guy up here, so.
Well, the way I look at it is okay, I expect to have the items by 2 o'clock. Not only what the item is, but preferably the supporting documents too, if they're coming from someone other than me getting them. Because, I'm trying to get the agenda together, and I'm trying to get it on the website, and I'm trying to do all this other, so it makes it difficult if I don't get things in a timely manner. Now, as far as this sensitive item goes, I would look at it as, I don't know, it's not really an emergency item.
Can I say something that might make you look at this differently or feel different? The policy, as it says today, includes the same language, time sensitive.
Yeah, but we're changing it, so.
Right,
We're changing it, I think we're changing it to encompass the planning board.
correct.
Part of
Or
it.
any other
that's
board that
fine.
may come about.
But,
And I don't have a problem with any of it. I don't have a problem putting something on the agenda the night of the meeting as long as it's not voted on. I have a
Correct.
problem when, because people, I'm not saying anybody here would do it, but some people will escape this. And I'm not voting for it with time sensitive. And I know it's in there now, that's fine. There's a lot of things in some of these things that I'll vote against, and this is one of them. Time sensitive's not in there, I'll vote for it because I think it's a sound policy.
Okay.
Okay. Call a question. Darren?
No.
Jimmy?
Well, since we've got it out here, can we not just ask to strike that as part of the motion? So we don't have to do this again in April?
Mr. Attorney would answer that.
Well, you can see, I mean, it may pass, you still got 3 more votes.
We just
And then
have
if
to
not,
amend
then we'll make a motion to take the time sensitive out. I mean, if they want to pass it, I mean, I don't want to stop the vote.
Before we get.
Hey, we can amend the motion.
Hey, Carl.
You want to make a motion to amend the motion?
Well, I mean, we've already made the motion and you're voting on it.
We're in the middle of a
So
vote.
finish the vote, and then if it don't pass, I'll make a motion.
Okay. Darren voted no. You voted
No?
no. Derek?
Derek's yes.
Jim?
Jim's no.
Doesn't matter. I'll say yes.
I just want to make sure.
This
I
is
mean, if
a
we have
first.
Something needs to be fixed.
I'll
let's
make a
just fix it.
motion. Well, Jim's on the winning side again.
I see
He's
ice
always
cream up at
That's true,
DJ's
that's
tomorrow
about-
at 3
I
o'clock.
just want to be fixed.
I'll make
If
a
you got a problem,
motion.
let's fix it.
I'll make a motion that we strike time sensitive
And approve it.
and approve it as the rest of us.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call a question.
Jimmy, wait a minute, can I ask something? Because I think just striking that is, the sentence isn't gonna read right. It says there will be no vote taken on this agenda item unless the item is, and then you're just striking time
Yeah,
sensitive.
let's take unless the item is time sensitive. I'm
We just
sorry, I'll
take-
amend my motion.
That's okay, but, and I'm gonna throw out this as a possibility, that sentence read, there will be no vote taken on this agenda item unless approved by the board. And that way, if there's something on there, y'all would just, any board would take it up and say, or do we agree that we're gonna vote on this or not? And then y'all make the decision whether, or the planning board makes the decision whether they're gonna take a vote on it or not.
So we decide the level of time sensitive, in other words, basically,
I'm
in the
not-
long run.
I'm not gonna do it because
That's
I
what I was
still
trying to
see, I
say.
still see
That's what I was trying to
room
say.
for hanky panky.
Okay, the motion died.
Did it die?
Unless somebody wants to make a new one.
Well, Jimmy, this only applies to the boards. The council is already under this policy. So we're just talking
just
about the planning board, correct?
No, it's a blanket. It's covering everybody. It's a good policy. I'm not saying
Right.
anything about the policy. I'm just not opening the door for somebody to come in here and make votes before people have a chance to know what's going on out there. And I know a lot of people don't come, but they need the opportunity to.
But then,
Okay.
but since
That-
we
that's
pass
why-
a plan, Since that language is in the plan, it could happen today.
Well, I voted. I mean, I made a motion. Nobody's gonna second that motion?
I'll second your motion, brother.
We need to finish.
I don't remember what
Okay,
I'm.
now, wait a minute. Jimmy's motion is to just strike the words unless the item is time sensitive, right, Jimmy?
That's right.
Sentence will read, there will be no vote taken on this agenda item, period.
Right.
Okay, and then you're gonna also,
It won't be for that.
your motion also incorporates the changes that, were proposed by the clerk too, right?
Right. She got good changes. They're good changes.
Okay, so that's his motion and it's been seconded.
Okay,
May I ask who seconded that, because everybody was talking at one time?
I did, I think.
Okay.
any discussion? Do you know what we're voting on?
Now, are we re-voting and
We're-
negating the first two?
We're
We're just
voting,
taking out time sensitive.
we're taking out unless the item is time sensitive. Everything else Alicia said here.
So we have to start the actual vote over
Yeah,
again.
now we're voting for this without that in.
Okay. So that other one is
Yeah.
Okay.
done.
I'm going to call a question. Theron?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Derek?
Yes.
Jim?
No.
No. Okay. Next item on the agenda, need to update Stokesdale land use plan.
We take 5 minutes.
General Statute 160A was repealed in December of 2020. And and was replaced by General Statute 160D. And that goes to basically land development ordinances. And there's a provision in there, if you don't update it and do certain things, that you cannot have any zoning cases after July 1st of this year. I talked to Tom about that, and Tom, I'll let you talk about that, but I think you said you were working on that, and you had some proposed changes to our ordinance that you'll bring out and make sure we're in compliance with the law.
Yes, that's correct. So I have already gone through the development ordinance, just looking for anything that was going to be inconsistent with the new 160D development ordinance that was, development statute that was passed. And there's some technical changes that we need to make, references to 160A that don't apply anymore, things of that nature. But otherwise, our development ordinance is in pretty good shape as far as the new development statute is concerned. I have spoken with Oliver Bass about, I'd like to have a meeting with him, go over my notes, sort of see what, if anything, Guilford County had proposed or changes that they had made or are making based on this new statute. And then we'll be proposing something back to council prior to the July 1 deadline so that we can get it in line. This is, I didn't go through looking to make any substantive changes to anything that, like what's been discussed by other people tonight. So this is just to make sure that we don't have anything that's inconsistent with the new general statute.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, I put this on there. If you've read the Northwest Observer, if you looked at Summerfield's website, they are looking to extend their ETJ for 2 miles. And that could have some impact on us in terms of properties in the, not in our town, but on the west side of 220. Walter Cohn's Way, the Blackburn property on the other side of 158. And I would just like us to write a letter to the commissioners or a resolution or something, say that we would like to be a part of that discussion before a vote was taken by the county commissioners, that we have some concerns. We, have the same interest that Summerfield does on those, especially on the people on Walter Cohn's Way. When they closed Spotswood, they changed the name of it, but those people now have a Stokesdale address served by the Stokesdale Fire Department. And so if they take it in the ETJ, and I don't know the legal ramifications of this, I would assume that Summerfield Fire Department would have that. And then they would have to get off of 220, come around 158, go down Spotswood. it'd be more timely for them to react to a fire than us. I think the property owners down there probably would prefer to be in the town of Stokesdale, so we don't have a tax, and our zoning laws are a little different. But I'd just like for us to be part of the conversation with commissioners on that, rather than just make an arbitrary decision what's best for Summerfield. And so that's my thought. I'll
If
open
they,
that up.
if they take that in, and let's say that, the Pike guy wanted to, become part of Stokesdale on a voluntary annexation, because I'd never annexate, just by taking it, but I don't think you can anyway now, but would that stop you from doing that?
Tom, did you hear the question?
If, I'll repeat it, if a piece of property is going to be in Summerfield's ETJ and they want to be annexed by Stokesdale voluntarily, is there anything, would the being in the ETJ prevent that from happening?
Right.
To my knowledge, and I'd have to confirm it, but to my knowledge, no, it would not. I think they could they could request it. Being in the ETJ just puts them under Summerfield's planning development ordinance rather than the county or rather than Stokesdale. So, but I don't think there's any limitation on the annexation because of that. They may, I'd have to look it up specifically though to see.
Without a vote.
Right.
They don't have any, they can't vote on their, they can't vote on the people that's making the decisions. That's not right. I mean, it's,
Well, I think the county commissioners have the right to extend the town's ETJ. And that would, of course,
well, I
change
understand
their
they
zoning.
can.
Huh?
I understand they can. That don't make it right when a man don't have a vote on who's doing his work.
I agree.
I mean, they can do it. There's a lot of things they can do. They can take 100% of our paycheck, federal taxes, if they want to,
Okay.
you know?
Okay,
So do we need to take a vote on that?
do y'all want to send a letter to the commissioners or have Tom draft something, or is that
No, I
concern
agree.
to you?
Get Tom
Yeah,
to draft
I'm-
something.
May I just,
Sure.
I don't think it will affect your vote, but just, according to my writer's notes from that Summerfield Town Council meeting, they voted 4-1 to reduce the size of the proposed extraterritorial jurisdiction around Summerfield. I don't have the specifics, I was not at that meeting, but just want to let you know, I don't think it's 2 miles anymore. Probably doesn't affect your vote, but it's not
Okay.
quite what they initially proposed.
Okay.
You know, we could reach out to those folks in those areas and ask if they'd like to come in. You know, like I said, I would never want to force anybody to come in to anything.
But only extending ETJ, I don't know that the way they're trying to do it, the people may not have a vote. They're just trying to get the commissioners to.
No, I understand. I'm for what you're saying.
Consent agenda.
I'm for what you're saying. All I'm saying, I guess somebody can do voluntary annexation if they wanted to, you know, do that. I don't know, they might want to be in Summerfield, and if they do, that's fine.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
I wouldn't want to.
I just throw that out. Think about it, and we can talk about it next month.
No, I'm for it.
No,
You
yes.
know, it'd make us,
Let's
You wanna-
take a vote instead of seeing it in the paper that it's over already.
yeah.
Huh?
Let's take a vote instead of waiting to see it in the paper and saying, I wish we'd have done it then.
Yeah, make you
Well, I suggest we have Tom draft a letter to the county commissioners and especially Skip Austin, the chairman, just saying that Stokesdale would like to be part of that conversation on any annexation that would be in close proximity to our
Town of Stokesdale.
town limits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Have a second? Any discussion? Call a question. Darren?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I. Item number 11, no T, do you want to talk about that again, or are you okay?
Yeah, maybe his questions are answered, but like I say, Kami called me, I guess it was Tuesday, and he had questions about, I mean, this has been going on for 4 months. I don't know how to answer the question. I think the letter from Oliver caused confusion. I think I think he was under the understanding they were going to be heard at the last planning board meeting, and that didn't happen. some of these text amendments haven't been on any agenda, and they paid money for that. And then the public record request, he had questions about those, and I just said, I'll put this on the agenda as a discussion item and let you address that, because I don't have all the answers.
Okay, thanks. My name's Tommy Johnson. I reside at 7769 NC Highway 68 North in Stokesdale. The purpose of my public records request goes back to November 19th, 2020. We requested a waiver approval by the planning board. We built 4 duplexes about 5 years ago on No Tees Lane, a private lane. The ordinance only allows 4 lots to be serviced by a private lane, and we asked for a waiver to allow 3 more duplexes on the other side of the road be allowed to be serviced by No Tees Lane. In other words, there's 4 down one side of No Tees Lane. We bought land on this side, 3+ acres. We want to subdivide it, put 3 duplexes here facing these 4 duplexes. All of them come out No Tees Lane. Well, we believed, and still believe for that matter, that letting 3 new duplexes face the other 4 existing duplexes and accessing Hall River Road by way of No Tees Lane is much safer than having 3 or 4 new driveways onto Hall River Road, where you'd be adding 3 new bus stops, 6 mailboxes, 6 trash truck stops, etc. The legal term is equal or better performance. Well, the planning board considered and agreed with our request by a vote of 5-0. Any decision by the planning board, though, can be appealed to the town council within 15 days. Well, on approximately December 7th or 8th, the 18th or 19th day after the planning board meeting, we got word that there'd been an appeal filed. I came down to town hall and asked who and what date was it filed, since the appeal form we got had no date on it and no fee. If you file an appeal, you got to pay a $200 fee, and obviously you better have a date on it. And there'd been no $200 fee paid. Well, I was told that John Flint filed it. And I've got a little email here that was written on December the 4th from the town clerk to Tom Medlin, and quote here, "The mayor is not happy that the planning board approved the waiver request for No Tees Lane without discussing it with town council." I didn't realize the planning board had to check with the mayor or the town council to do their job. Well, we appealed to town council to rule on the validity of John's filed appeal. After much discussion at the January 14th town council meeting, the council agreed with us that John's appeal was not valid. Well, it became very clear that you are not allowed to challenge the authority of the mayor. Became abundantly clear to us. We could not get our normal cooperation from Oliver Bass, and finally got a letter dated February 15th from him that opens, quote, "At the direction of the mayor of the town of Stokesdale," end quote. Sounds to me like he's not really wanting to take author of that. I'm doing it at the direction of the mayor of Stokesdale. Well, at this point, we figured something's going on. So I made a public records request for copies of all emails dated between November 19th, which was the planning board meeting, and the date of providing the response that contains the name Tommy Johnson, etc. And that was to include the staff, councilman, and mayor emails. I sent this request to the town clerk, all the council members, and the town attorney, and I received a response from 3 council members, Mr. Foy, Mr. Rigsby, and Mr. Landreth on 2/23. On 2/24, I got an email from the town clerk that said she had her packet ready, but I didn't come down and pick it up until March 1. Upon receiving the packet from the town clerk, I noticed that she had more documents or emails, which would be expected, than the council members' packet. But what would not be expected is for the packet from the 3 council members to contain one email that the town clerk's packet left out. An email dated December the 9th. This email was sent from the town clerk to the town attorney with a copy to John Flint. I'm going to read that email to you. It's a rather lengthy one. This was sent on December the 9th, shortly after I came in here and checked on the validity of the appeal. Mr. Mayor, good morning, Tom. The mayor asked me to send this attachment to you. If I didn't know better, that almost sounds like the same start to Oliver Bass's letter at the direction of the mayor. Well, he and Priscilla were doing some investigation on the No Tees Lane and how it was connected to the water system as well as the agreement on the road. It has been discovered that in 2016, when Commie Johnson originally discussed the development of the original 4 duplexes, he was allowed by then Mayor Braswell to run his water lines a little unconventional and not to town of Stokesdale water specs. Instead of building a proper infrastructure of lines as our specifications required, then Mayor Braswell allowed him to bore under Hall River Road and run a 2-inch line from the main that feeds the Kings Crossing Shopping Center and place 8 boxes on a hill that runs along Hall River Road. Then he was allowed to run some old lines that were already on the property from the duplexes to the meters. That was totally against even our then water specification requirements. Then on top of that, somehow Commie, and quite possibly Mayor Braswell, duped, that's D-U-P-E-D, duped the then deputy clerk over water, the front desk deputy clerk, and Kim Henrick, the then town clerk, into giving him 6 meters for less than the price of 1, and managed in the confusion to add 2 more meters for a total of 8 meters at a price of $2,448. That wouldn't even cover 1 meter if he paid what the actual price was at the time. The attachments are a copy of his application, not even sure where the $408 amount written came from. It fits none of the price list. A copy of the check Deanna Marcus collected from him, which doesn't cover 1 meter, but the check shows in the 4-line No Tees 6 meters. A work order for only 1 meter. Affidavits written out and signed by the 2 deputy clerks and the town clerk when they realized this wasn't right. I have also included the tap fee prices that would have been in effect in 2016. The minutes from May 2nd, 2016, when they increased fees to our now current fees, and a copy of those. Basically, John is wanting to know if the town has any way to go back against Commie Johnson for this illegal wrongdoing. And to reiterate his reasoning for appealing the No Tees waiver, just another favor Commie is asking for to bend the ordinances to save him money.
I'm going to defend myself.
No, you're not. I'm talking right now. Commie should have paid $2,500 per meter times 8 meters for $20,000. As well, he should have had his infrastructure laid to meet the water specifications of the time, which are very close to the same we have today. He told the clerks at the time that he and Randy Braswell had talked after a meeting, and Braswell had agreed to allow him to do this. It was never brought to council for a vote. Remember that. And shouldn't have been. We can't make exceptions or do favors for one and not all. Then there were a couple of other situations like this the first year I came to work here between Braswell, Tim Jones, and Commie Johnson, and another developer in town. This just came to light while he was looking at the notees properties. Thanks. Well, I'm going to discuss this email. Actually, I'm going to clear up several falsehoods in this email. In fact, there ain't very much in this email that's true. It says I was allowed by Mayor Braswell to run water lines, quote, a little unconventional, end quote. And then down near the end of the email that, quote, it was never brought to council for a vote, end quote. Well, let me read an email I sent to Michael Painter, professional engineer with the North Carolina DENR, Division of Water Resources, Public Water Supply Section, with Mayor Braswell copied on my email, and Mr. Painter's response, which also copied Mr. Braswell. This email was sent by me to Michael Painter, copied to Randy Braswell, copied Randy Braswell. Michael, thanks for the phone calls earlier today. As per our discussion, I am going to ask my question in writing with a copy to Mayor Braswell and would appreciate your written response. We as owners and contractors want to build 4 duplexes on Notees Lane, in parentheses, a private lane, which runs off Hall River Road. The town's water system is directly across Hall River Road from our Lot 1. We propose to pay the town to furnish and install a 2-inch bore and tap from their water main over to our Lot 1. Town will tee the end of the 2-inch line and set 8 3/4 residential meters. This arrangement will be considered a service lateral just like any other service connection. I believe after meeting with the mayor and one council member yesterday and discussing this installation that the town desires to do this exact installation, but just wants confirmation from North Carolina DENR that this is an acceptable installation. Please advise. Thanks. Very same day, a response from Mr. Painter to me with a copy to Mr. Braswell. Mr. Johnson, and actually when I sent it to him, I sent him a sketch and showed exactly what we were doing. Here's the existing water line, existing fire hydrant, existing 12-inch water line, a proposed 2-inch tap with gang meter assembly under Hall River. There's the meters. It was all sent to him. Here's his response. Mr. Johnson, based on your description of the water service line to the proposed units, as long as service is for domestic/potable water, potable use only, and it is, and there would be no further extension of the line for public use, and there is none, we would not object in this case to the line being considered a service line as long as the town considers it a service connection line and treats it as such. Note that water line extensions are evaluated and interpreted on a case-by-case basis, and in a lot of cases are not straightforward when distinguishing between service line and public water mains requiring approval from the Public Water Supplies Technical Services Review Unit. As long as the town considers this a service line, has no cross-connection concerns, then it would not require approval. Hope this is helpful. And as for the comment that, down at the bottom here, that it was never brought to council for vote, I refer you to this set of minutes right here from the town council meeting. I'm going to read a little bit of it to you. This council meeting, Town of Stokesdale special meeting, June 25th, happens to be And this thing from Michael Painter's response was June 16th. So June 16th, council has a special meeting on June 25th. And Mayor Randy Braswell was here, Frank Bruno, Bill Jones, Vicky White Lawrence, and Joe Thacker, which happens to be all the council members. Also present was the town attorney, Carolyn Joyner, and God knows who else. There's an item on here, agenda item that says, consider a request for the installation of a gang meter assembly to service duplexes. Mayor Braswell said that Mike Painter of the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources in Winston-Salem Regional Office was contacted by email about this request. Discussion took place. Mayor Braswell made a motion to move forward with this project and allow Carolyn Joyner to process the application when it is received. Bill Jones seconded the motion. All council members voted aye, and the motion was approved. So much for it was never brought to the council for a vote. Back to the town clerk's email. She says, quote, then he was allowed to run some old lines that were already on the property from the duplexes to the meters, end quote. I was allowed to run some old lines that were already on the property from the duplexes to the meters. I don't even know how she dreamed that up. I have receipts right here for 4,800 linear feet of 1.5-inch PVC for a new water line from the back of each meter to each duplex unit. 8 lines, individual lines from the back of the meter to the unit. That's right. Why would the town clerk add this total false statement? Is she trying to embellish her story? Is she trying to make me look bad? Or is she simply doing what her email starts out saying? Doing what the mayor asked her to do? Then the email says that I, and quote, and quite possibly Mayor Braswell duped, end quote. Y'all know what duped means? I had to look it up in the dictionary. That's to deceive, to fool. We duped the town staff into giving me 6 meters for less than the price of 1, and then managed into confusion to add 2 more meters for a total of 8 meters at a price of $2,448. Well, for the record, I did not dupe anyone, and I don't appreciate being accused of duping. Here is a handwritten note. I do keep notes, I promise you. Here's a handwritten note when this was going on. I received a call from Carolyn. We all know who Carolyn was. On 8/21/15, $13,024, everything but meters. Meters are $358 each. That adds up to $15,888 plus the deposits. And I've got the council checks here if anybody wants to see them. The $13,000, where I went down on September the 30th of 15 and paid the $13,024. Randy's got a copy of the council checks. The town had Yates Construction. They got a price from Yates Construction. Carolyn called and gave me the price. I went down and paid the $13,024. The town had Yates to come out and do the tap and the gang meter assembly just like they would do if you called and wanted to tap and meter in front of your house. If you want a meter in front of your house, they're gonna send Yates out there and they're gonna tap it and put the meter in your front yard. Exactly what this was. I went back to town hall and paid $816 on March 17th of 16 to get 2 meters. That's 2 times the $358 plus a $50 deposit each for use, and I just got 2 because I didn't need 8 meters while I was doing the construction. I put 1 on each end so that I'd have construction water. When the buildings neared completion, I went back to town hall and paid $24.48 for the last 6 meters. $358 each plus a $50 deposit. That's $408 times 6 is $24.48. Please remember how it was worded here. I duped them out of 6 meters and then managed in the confusion to go back and get 2 more for a total of $24.48. Somebody missed part of the story. I think I know. Well, she goes on to write that an affidavit was written out by the deputy clerks when they realized this was not right. All right, here's a copy of that affidavit. It ends by saying, and I'm going to read the yellowed part here, nothing was processed. In order to get the 6 meters, Comey Johnson needs to fill out 6 new applications and pay the new rate for each water meter. Okay? I never saw or heard anything out of town hall. After I went down and gave them $2,448, I ain't heard nothing out of them. Well, they come out and set my meters, the 6 meters. How'd we get from nothing was processed till they came out and set my meters? I've never seen this until a day or so ago when I did the public records request. How'd we get beyond this? I don't know. So, when I saw the affidavit recently for the first time, I called and asked former Mayor Braswell how they overcame this and then came out and set my last 6 meters. How did we get past this and set my meters and I never knew anything about it? He said that he and Bill Jones called the Guilford County Inspection Office and determined that I had indeed bought 8 building permits up front and that this was an ongoing project and that the only right thing to do was honor the original quoted price. Back to the email. It says basically, quote, basically John is wanting to know if the town has any way to go back against Comey Johnson for this illegal wrongdoing, end quote. And here's the real crux of it. The next thing says, and to reiterate his reasoning for appealing the notees, the current notees waiver, just another favor Comey's asking for to bend the ordinances to save him money. That's why we were having a fit while ago discussing earlier. She goes on to say, quote, it was never brought to council for a vote and shouldn't have been. We can't make exceptions or do favors for one and not all. Why do they think the ordinance has the ability to ask for a waiver? there are specific grounds for the planning board to approve a waiver. Equal or better performance is one of them. But doing a favor for the applicant is not grounds for a waiver. And lastly, in the email, the clerk has to get in one more blow. Quote, there were a couple of other situations like this the first year I came to work here, between Braswell, Tim Jones, and Comey Johnson, and another developer in town, end quote. I think this is just some further embellishment of their story to make it sound better, since I don't have a clue what she's talking about. She does manage to libel former Mayor Braswell, current Planning Board Chairman Tim Jones, and myself in this email, and I suspect that I have been slandered when this was discussed and presented to the other council members. Remember, this was between the town clerk, the town mayor, and the town attorney to start with, but showed up in the public records response from the 3 council members, but was left out of the packet from the town clerk. I wonder why this was left out of the packet from the town clerk. On January the 11th, when we requested to go before town council to question John's appeal, I have a copy of an email from John Flint to Derek Foy. It states that, quote, major subdivisions are not allowed in agricultural zoning districts. That I agree with. It goes on to say, nor are duplexes allowed. That is incorrect.
That is correct.
That is incorrect.
Look at the permitted use.
That's the,
Permitted use
I'll
table.
be glad to show you that. The only zoning, let me read that to you again, because I think you want to change your story. It states that major subdivisions are not allowed in agricultural zoning.
That's right.
Nor are duplexes allowed.
That's right.
You better look that up, because the only place you can build duplexes is in agriculture zoning.
That's right. And you can't do a major subdivision in a agricultural zone.
You're saying that duplexes aren't allowed in agriculture zoning, and that is incorrect.
I said they are, but they're not in
It states
RS40.
that major subdivisions, I'll read it right here point blank if you'd like me to. I'm reading, quote, major subdivisions, this is off your email, are not allowed in agricultural zoning districts, nor are duplexes allowed. So, okay, so you're referring that to the major subdivision, not the agriculture zoning. I apologize.
You can have a 5-lot subdivision in agricultural zone.
But the only place you can build duplexes is in agriculture zoning.
Exactly, I agree with that.
Okay, good. We agree on something. John goes on to try and tell Derek that, quote, if we allow this to stand, then duplexes could be allowed in all residential zoning classifications due to the precedents the planning board decision established, end quote. Well, that's total rubbish. We did not even ask for a rezoning, only a simple waiver to create an equal or better performance. On January 15th, I have an email from John Flint to Councilman Foy that ends by stating, quote, this fight is not over. I didn't even know we were in a fight, but apparently we are. On Saturday, February 20th, I called Councilman Foy to ask him about a letter I received from Oliver Bass, and he asked to meet with me to ask some questions of his own. We met on Sunday, February the 21st, and he asked me to clarify payment history regarding the 4 existing duplexes 5 years ago on Noties Lane. I showed him the documents that I have shared here tonight, And he sent an email detailing the payments to Mayor Flint and the other council members, town attorney, and town clerk on Sunday night at 8:07 p.m. John Flint responded at 9:39 p.m. with this. With regards to the payments Comey made for water service, there is some documents that the town paid for the extension of the water lines, and he reimbursed us for those costs. I have never seen the town do that, so it requires greater investigation. But according to Tom, the attorney, the statute of limitation has expired. So there is no purpose to see what really happened. You know how I interpret that? There's no purpose to see what really happened. That to me means there's no reason to get to the truth. The truth don't matter. That's what that means to me. The truth don't matter. Well, Mr. Mayor and Madam Clerk, I disagree. The truth does matter. It always matters. You know, I'm okay with us disagreeing on some things. You can call me names. But when you start challenging my personal integrity, you've crossed the line. This email is a defamation of my name and character. You have libeled the former mayor, the current planning board chairman, in my opinion, and me. I suspect slander has occurred behind closed doors. And this is not what the citizens of Stokesdale should get from their elected officials and paid staff. We deserve better than this. For right now, while I am considering all my other options, all I'm looking for is a public apology from the town mayor and town clerk, and a copy of my rebuttal be attached to this email so that anybody down the road who reads it will get the truth. Thank you.
I'm going to respond to a couple things you said, Tom.
Mr. Mayor, may I comment?
No, I'm going to, he made some pretty serious accusations against me, and I'm going to respond.
I'm ready to make some serious accusations.
It's my call. You can talk later.
I beg your pardon, sir.
You can talk after I do. Comment, the deadline, I believe, for the 15-day appeal was on Friday. I came to town council on Thursday, and I sent Tom Medlin a copy of my concerns about the waiver that put it into a major subdivision, that you couldn't do a duplex in in RS zoning, and a couple other things. And I told him that I wanted to file an appeal, and I filed an appeal, and I sent you an email, or Bill Greco, or both of you, one that hadn't been completely processed. It did not have a time on it. But the next day before the 15th, the deadline, they did it. I did not pay the $200. I talked to Oliver and Tom Medlin, and they both said, you're paying money from the town of Stokesdale to the town of Stokesdale. Don't think you need to do it. We had a discussion on that. The council voted that I didn't have the right to appeal it. So I said, okay, I agree. I gave up my right of waiver, and you got the 3 additional lots on No. 2, the private lane. No question at all. I didn't challenge that any further. I could have gone to Superior Court, but I didn't. So Tom Medlin was aware of that. I've got an email from him. You should have that dated before the 15th day, whatever day that was.
I don't challenge that you got it filed timely.
Okay. Okay.
It didn't have a date on it, and it didn't pay the fee. And I didn't make the decision that it was an invalid appeal.
Yeah, and so I asked the question, and I talked to Oliver, and I talked to Oliver's boss. I said, now, it's my understanding, based...
No reason for us to litigate this tonight.
No, but I want to clarify my name, because you made some fairly serious,
That's the intent I had.
and I'm going to talk about that too in a second. But I talked to Oliver and Tom, and I said, now, I think it was, I don't remember if it's closed session or in here. He said, if he gets the waiver, then he has to get an RS zoning. And if he does that, then then he loses his right to do a duplex.
You found something to hang your hat on, I understand that.
And based on the
We're going
ordinance.
to address that.
Now, let me address a few things on that.
Absolutely.
And I wish that you would come to town council
I
tomorrow.
wish you'd have called me instead of producing this email.
Well, I
I
was
never
going
got
through
no
the
phone
attorney.
call, so why am I supposed to call you? I never got a phone call. Okay,
My responsibility is to talk to the attorney and to do what's the law. Now, in terms of, if you want to come by tomorrow, I'll be glad to show you the 3 documented letters in our file from the 3 members of the town staff at that time that had some concerns about that. They thought that the numbers weren't right.
Why did I never get a phone call?
This was 6 years ago. I wasn't on council.
Okay, so why did your email say I paid $2,448 for 8 meters?
That's what the numbers showed, and the same check was
Why would
used
you
each
even be
time.
investigating what happened 5 years ago?
I was trying to figure out where the meters were on this subdivision, and
Why didn't you call me and ask me?
because I want to see what's documented.
Well,
And
y'all
I
didn't
talked to
look
Gene
pretty deep.
Robertson. If I have a question on water, I'm going to talk to Gene Robertson, and he's the one that told me we put in
Call
the
and
gang
ask Gene
meters.
exactly what happened, because I've talked to him. He remembers it exactly.
Yeah, and one of the points you're making, you paid $13,300, whatever.
$15,888 for those meters.
Right. Typically, a person's going to pay the fee. We do have a markup on work that we do from Yates, and so the fee was $2,500 or whatever it was.
I paid exactly what was quoted to me by the town clerk. Exactly.
The ladies, there's a sworn statement in there from, I don't know, Kim or Diane, that said that you had, and Randy had agreed on something, and then we got a letter in file from Randy that said he didn't agree.
And they throwed it in a file and said, we're not going to put any meters out there. How'd I get my meters?
Damn fine know.
I
I think the town of
minutes ago.
Stokesdale paid this $13,000 or something like that, and you reimburse us.
I went down and paid the $13,024. I went and bought 2 meters.
Did you pay the town of Stokesdale? You did, didn't you?
Absolutely. I paid the town of Stokesdale all 3 times. All y'all found was one receipt for $2,448 and tried to say that I bought 8 meters. for
What I'm trying to,
$2,448.
what I'm trying to say, Tommy, is typically, we charge a flat fee for the meters, the same for everybody. Those gang meters were, as far as I know, one of the very few have been put in.
Quoted deal.
But we're not supposed to charge you the same thing as we pay. We have some
I didn't say
markup.
that. Did I question what I paid? I paid exactly what I was quoted.
And that's the question. We don't know who quoted that. Why would they quote a different price than the scheduled price on the fee schedule?
What you're missing is, okay, you're trying to say in this email that there ought to have been $2,500 a meter. That's for a separate 3/4 inch tap and fee for a 3/4 meter, right?
For a meter.
For a meter, yes. No, that's for a meter. That's for you to come out there and bore and tap and run me and
Right.
set me a meter box.
Right. And we set you
You said 8 boxes.
8 meters
and
on a
did
gang
one-
meter.
And did one bore. And one bore.
Right.
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 I don't care what your price was. You quoted me a price, the town quoted me a price, and I paid it. That's the end of the dang story.
Well, I tell you what, if you'll come into town council tomorrow and you'll look at what we've got documented in file.
I don't care what you got in the file. All you had to do was call me instead of writing this, defaming this email and discussing it behind closed doors. If you wanted the truth, why didn't you call me? That's all I'm gonna talk about.
Because we were looking at what was in file.
This ain't gonna take but just a second. Okay. You're not gonna talk your way out of this. Fair?
go home tonight or in the morning, read 1 Kings 16, and you read it, and this is the exact story, history. And you guys are in, okay? It's a tough job. The time that I served and the time you guys served. It's time, and you're gonna have to do it. The town deserves better than this. The man has laid out a case, and he can put the screws to this town, so you better fix it. Okay? Jim, I don't know you that well. I know both you. And you know who's. That's bullshit. And y'all better do something about it.
Then why did your employees put that in the file?
I don't have nothing else to say, Mayor Flynn.
That's fine.
What are you,
Okay,
Randy, what are you talking about specifically as far as changing this?
Sir?
What are you specifically talking about as far as changing?
I think you need to go read 1 Kings.
No, I got that.
You go read it tonight. That's what's playing out right here. It was just read to you, okay? You guys got a job to do. Do it. The town will demand you to do it.
Do what? That's my question.
You're a smart man, figure it out. If you don't get that right there, you do not need to sit on the council. Okay? That's as plain and simple as it can be laid out. The facts, the documents, the checks, the whole 9 yards, guys.
That's a man you sit in church with.
and we did this in,
church with this man, and then you're gonna hear about behind closed doors, you can't call him? That's how you want. That's how you want.
Call what? Who?
Call him. He called you, you and him call him back.
I didn't never get a phone
Spineless.
call.
You're spineless.
Okay, stop.
okay. Next item. Citizens
Well,
comment.
are we gonna get an apology? I'm kinda concerned about his next steps.
I would like for him to come in and see what we have documented on files. The comments from the 3 employees, what's in the file.
John, that doesn't matter.
The paperwork don't even line up. He just read it to you.
Y'all gonna talk your way out of it.
You haven't seen it, you haven't seen everything in there.
Right now, the copies come out right now.
Order. Come on, guys and ladies.
I think the point here is not what's in the file. The point is the defamation of his character, and that's what he's concerned about, what he wants the apology for. I think, obviously, he still wants to see those documents. I'm sure he does. But I think he was very clear that he wants some, he's been defamed and he wants some, resolution from that. I don't see how you guys are missing that.
Amen.
And
Well, I'm not gonna apologize for the process, talking to the attorney about the zoning. I believe the facts speak for themselves. On the zoning now.
Forget about the zoning, John.
Well, that was one of the 2 things he was talking about. And I want him to understand that I talked to the attorney, and the attorney agreed that it would require a rezoning. And that's what we may or may not do. I don't know what the case is going to be. In terms of the other, I'm telling you, when you see stuff in file, that means something.
I'm given everything that was in the file. I had a public records request. You sent me.
I think you had a specific time between certain dates. These things were 6 years old.
Kami, I'll tell you.
he's talking about the email.
Copy of an affidavit.
I'll tell you why I personally didn't give you those 2 files, because I was concerned that 2 of those were not a public document and they might have been in a personnel file.
Exactly.
One of them was a public document.
The email
Public
that
document.
went to Tom should have been in your folder. I put it in there at the end because this should have never even gone public, period.
Wrong.
When John found, hold on just a second. hold on just a second. I am only the town clerk here, and that email that was sent to Tom was dictation to me. I didn't word any of that. It was dictation to me to send to Tom on his behalf, based on the paperwork that he had in front of him, to ask Tom to investigate, okay? Then,
Dictated by him, but embellished by you.
It was dictated to you by John Flynn?
exactly. But hold on just a second, let me finish, okay? This has got all blown out of proportion as far as defaming you in public, because this was never intended to leave a legal closed session meeting.
What happens?
It left it when you.
Because
That was
it
not a
was
legal closed
stopped.
session meeting. There was not a vote to go into closed session meeting. That document was a public document, and the town attorney told you it was a public document and it needed to be
Yes, because
disclosed.
it was an email. However,
The law is the law.
the total discussion was closed session, so it really should have never left
The email was written
doors.
before closed session. The closed session was illegal. There was not a vote to go into closed session.
But anyway, Connie, I am sorry, because all I did was dictation. I have a job to do,
And I accept your apology.
I,
I knew you didn't dream all that up. when you
right. I have to do what I'm told, and I have 5 that tell me what to do.
I understand you've got
So-
a
Now,
impossible job.
Tommy, let me offer you a public apology. I was basing it, stuff I saw in the file. I have to take that in the information I get
All I
with
want
some
is
credibility.
when
But I
you find
apologize
something
if
you
I
don't like about me, call me. I'll be glad to give my side of the story. I don't appreciate this going on behind closed doors. What happens if that email is found 10 years from now, and I come in with something else I want to do, and there's going to be a whole new council, whole new staff? What if somebody there finds that email? She said I was never supposed to find out about it. Well, 10 years from now, somebody's thumbing through the file like you, and they come across it. And I'm in here trying to get 50 acres rezoned for a subdivision or whatever, and they say, dang, this is that duper.
You comment?
He's the illegal wrongdoer.
And that's exactly what we did in closed session. I gave Tom Medlin and members of council some general information, the documentation we had, and the letters and things like that, and I said, investigate. It should have stayed in that closed session meeting. It should not have gotten out in public.
Why did you dictate an email that reads like that?
I mean,
Tom, what did you say about that email?
The information.
Tom,
If you have questions, if you'd have called me, I could have provided the same information I provided to Mr. Foy, I could have provided to you.
And I got
And
that
we
same
won't be
information from Gene Robertson, and it's the same as what you got. We had the same check amounts and things like that. The thing that we don't understand is where in the world did they come up with a number of $358 or whatever it was?
Well,
I mean, that's the thing
actual
we don't.
meter- An actual meter at that point is $150 or something, just the meter itself where the infrastructure's in, right? So
But the fee schedule for that
the
was like
$13,000
$2,500.
Pay for the infrastructure.
The fee schedule for that would come in, I'll show you, was roughly $2,508 or something, I don't know.
You don't even have the right fee structure. You said in that the 2-inch tap was $5,000?
No, I didn't.
It does.
As a 2-inch line, you don't have you've got a 2-inch line, not a 2-inch meter, you got a.
I have, a 2-inch tap and meter is $5,000, you said. It's actually $6,500. I've got the correct paperwork.
Anyway, I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
But I would still like you to come see, so maybe you'll feel a little better about me.
I'm probably gonna do that, because I don't like my name, I don't like being accused of stuff that I'm not guilty of.
And I'm sorry, I was going on some bad information we had in file.
Okay, thank you.
We need to purge our files.
I need to call you. You gonna show it to me when I come down here?
Yeah, if you, call me before you come. Okay.
Tom, I want to ask Tom a question. Tom, will you clear this up? What did you communicate as far as that email to council about the closed session and the public information request?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Jimmy. You're asking me what I gave to council during the closed session?
No, the email in question that
Right.
Alicia says that John dictated to her.
Right?
What did you say about that email as far as the closed session and the public information request? I want to clear that up, please.
I said that that's a public document.
Okay.
It was not protected and would be required to be disclosed or turned over.
I released it to him at that time. It was in his packet, but there were like 80-some pages in it, so maybe he missed it, but it was given to him.
Why are you saying that it wasn't supposed to be?
She's saying that
I didn't know at the time. I asked Tom,
Okay.
can I release this to him? And that's what he replied back to me. Because I knew it was in the closed session, so I didn't know if it could legally be released.
All right, Tim Jones wanted to speak a little bit ago.
Go ahead.
Well, how long do I have so I know I won't get cut off? Have I got a few minutes?
Sure.
all night.
I'm just in a state of shock. This is just, it's bullshit. I've never seen anything to beat this. I don't even know where to begin. The entire time I've served this town and been in this town hall, I've played this paper chase, chasing documents around this town hall, public documents, just trying to get information. Mr. Johnson, I see all his points, but I don't have all the documents that he's mentioned. So I don't know what I want right here at the moment. But I got a special request to you three, because I know what I'll get from John Flint, Theron Hooks, and Alicia Houck. Nothing. And that request is to get Tom Medlin, the Stokesdale town attorney, to get every document that was mentioned here this evening pertaining to my being slandered by this town clerk. This ain't the first time I've let it go, and I've let it go, and I've let it go. You know, I'd go along, get along, and I'm up to about right here. I'm not going to have this bullshit floating around in the records on the internet and the Northwest Observer in a few years. Having people asking me, my grandchildren asking me, what did you do? Why did you allow Tommy Johnson to steal that money? It's all a damn lie. How can you three sit there and let this go on?
Amen.
I think this employee at least needs to be suspended, and you need to get somebody in here with a damn brain that can investigate this and figure out what the hell has happened. And that's just all I got to say for the night. I need to leave.
Any further comments? Citizen comments.
As I stated earlier, I served almost 8 years on this town council. And the first 6, I would say, were fairly smooth. I think we made a lot of progress on the water system and everything. The last 2 years, it just took a nosedive. Tim Jones and I could get no information. We would ask for documents. We went 6 months without any financial statements. Now, I say that, and they kept having the excuses because we don't have a financial statement because of this, we don't have a financial statement because of that. I think we didn't have a financial statement because there was $24,400 worth of trees cut down, and they never accounted for that. I have what they passed off as a financial statement that was supposed to run from June 2018 to February 2019 that included that time period when those $24,400 worth of trees were paid for, and it was not on that financial statement. It was not on, it wasn't even accounted for in that money. In fact, half of the stuff in this town wasn't accounted for that money. I have no idea what money's been spent, how it's been spent, who it was spent by, and as far as records go, I believe there's a lot of records missing in this place, and I say that because I went back sometime before I left, shortly before I left, and started going through some of the files in here looking for stuff, and I couldn't find it. Water documents, I couldn't find them. And so I don't know where they went. I'm just saying the reason you couldn't find those documents that had Tommy Johnson's stuff on it is because they're missing. I don't know why, I don't know who, but I'm very suspicious about that. But I can tell you there is incompetence in this place. There has been incompetence in this place, and you three council members, I expected to try to fix it. I expected y'all to come in and do something about it, because to have a town run like this is a shame. This is the worst run town in the state of North Carolina, I'll guarantee you.
Any more comments? Okay, announcements. Planning Board will have a public hearing, a virtual meeting, March the 25th at 7 o'clock. Our next budget meeting is Tuesday, April the 20th at 7 o'clock. I guess we'll do those in chamber, probably the same procedure we are now. And now, we're going to close the open public meeting portion of this meeting and ask that all citizens please exit the Zoom meeting platform so that the council can go into closed session for the remainder of this meeting. There will be no further business conducted at the end of the closed session. The mayor will adjourn for the night. Any discussion